What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Happy Monday, gang. Hope your weeks are off to a good start. A couple minutes late getting started here. Apologies. Just had to take care of a quick update on the projections up at the site. Had to lock the cat up. Lost a couple minutes there. But hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully it wasn't too bad a wait. A couple people hanging out in the chat. Andy's here. Meech is here. I'm sure some of the other regulars are out there, just haven't said hello yet. Everybody have a good weekend? It was a fun baseball weekend. Monster debut. You're not going to see a much better debut than that. Kind of bias from St. Louis. You were in the chat in our Discord on Saturday. We had that slate projected up on the site, that early slate, and I threw it into the chat. He was min-priced on DraftKings and 2,200, I want to say, on FanDuel. And I mentioned, hey, guys, this is a key piece. I didn't even play that slate, but kind of wish I had. Would have had him in my lineup. Man, 3 home run day. First time in history, 3 home run debut. Not bad. Clintwood's here. Yeah, having a great day, buddy. Hope you are as well. Hopefully the work week is off to a good start for everybody out there, or the non-work week would be even better, right? Maybe some vacations going on, or just some folks kicking back, not having to go to work. That would be even nicer. It's an interesting slate to talk through today. We've got 7 games on DK, 8 games on DraftKings. Joker just walked into the room. He's behind me. He's all excited about it. You might see the tail going back there. Good boy, buddy. Go find your spot. We got a ways to go. He was literally just asleep in the other room, so something got him excited and had him come running in here. We've got our pitching picks contest going on. Congratulations to Andy for getting his second one right with Yamamoto the other day. We had multiple people pile on Gage Jump who did not get there. Had a good start, though, in that game out in Sutter on Friday that we talked about through the show, his potential to limit what otherwise looked like a popular, good offensive spot. Just didn't get to what we need for the pitching picks contest, nor did Garrett Cole, but Andy got his second one right. He's leading the contest with 2. You got to get to 5 to win yourself a free month, so plenty of time still to do that. If you're new here, pitching picks contest, got to come back after the show's over, leave a comment on the show. You need to pick the starter today from these slates that is going to go for a quality start, which is 6 innings of 3 earned runs or fewer, and also strike out 8. So it's a challenging thing. It's kind of the way I look at pitching equivalent of like a home run. Not obviously points wise, but you get me. As far as nailing a low probability event, we had the home run contest. That one went well. Still got to pay that month out. I think it's being held until football starts, which I encourage guys to do. All the subscriptions include every single sport that hits that website. So all 4 major sports, whenever everything's going on, you're getting all of them. But if you hold off until at least 2 more weeks, you'll at least get baseball and football combined together. If you wait until hockey and basketball start up, so much the better. Use it whenever you want. Got a really interesting stacks board laid out here. The Dodgers are basically breaking probability today at Coors Field, going up against Tomo Sugano, one of the just more gettable pitchers in the sport in general. They look ridiculous. That's the definition of good chalk. I mean, they're explosive upside. They are essentially doubling anybody else's probability of scoring 8 or more runs, as you can see in those new columns. If you weren't here last week, the new 8 or more runs, this via FanGraphs game sims. Just pure baseball data, not taking fantasy data into account. But the Dodgers, 47% likely to go over 8 runs at Coors Field today. The next most likely team to go over 8 is Kansas City, who I do like at 25% probability against Mason Barnett and what's likely to be a short outing handed off to the bullpen. KC, second by probability of going over 10 at 12% probable. But you'll note that the Dodgers are coming in at nearly 30%. So just absolutely crushing it. They're almost tripling everybody else's probability of going over 10 runs. So just a monster spot. They're appropriately expensive. They're going to be appropriately owned. You can see on FanDuel, they're second by points per dollar value. The pricing really doesn't even matter. 10th by points per dollar is more problematic on DraftKings. More difficult to reach on DK. They're totally worthwhile. You just look around the board and put them together with some differentiated items that they're going to be a little bit lower on than just the next most chalky thing. You've got a lot of cheap, same type pitching to work with, which we're going to get into. It's an ugly, top-heavy pitching slate. But I just think that the Dodgers, of course, are just kind of unavoidably good and so likely to have a ceiling day. That's not to say that you're not going to have versions of today that you roll it 100 times and you get through with Phillies Diamondback stacks at the top of the board. You can see there's not much separation between that entire group right there as far as their likelihood of going for ceiling games. And a lot of those teams are coming in at very similar Vegas totals, very similar looking projections. A little bit of offset that we'll get into in a couple of them. A couple spots I like better than others. Atlanta against Bailey Ober's looking particularly good. We've got an opener follower situation going for the Red Sox against that Diamondbacks team, but they are suppressed a little bit when it comes to both home runs and the just general implied Vegas total. So the Diamondbacks are riding a little bit more ceiling there than they are through the mean or through the explosive potential upside for power. But as far as value, they're there. As far as projections, they're a strong option from the middle of the board. But I do think that's a spot that, because of that Vegas total, because of how they look on some people's power boards, I'm sure, Brian Bayo, the expected bulk reliever, doing most of that, I think maybe the Diamondbacks get a little bit sneaky around the way the sides of like the Royals, the Phillies, the Twins, the Braves, the more obvious secondary options there. So it's real interesting. Antonio's here. What's going on, Antonio? Antonio was one of those who took Gage Jump the other day. I like those picks. When I saw you guys, all three of you guys, Antonio, Meach, and Rabbit Hole all had Gage Jump. I was like, that's a good option. That one might pay off the board, but didn't quite get there. But that was a good pick that day. Good start by him. House, what's going on, buddy? House had Garrett Cole on Friday. I don't have that all just memorized. It's all literally right there. And I also just scored it immediately before the show. We get a showdown between the two Chicago teams. The Cubbies hitting kind of the middle of the board there against Luis Castillo. They're not showing great value upside, but that's just a good enough team that any given slate against a mid-board type pitcher, when they arrive like they do today, where they won't be crazy popular, there's a lot of usability on the Cubs. But you can see they're a little bit diminished as compared to the other teams that are in that upper end of the board as far as their probability of going for ceiling. Again, everything's relative. We're talking about 4 percentage points between 16.65 and 20.89, making up that difference between them and the Diamondbacks. So it's all very, very relative to a thin window of probabilities separating those two teams, but it is there. The Tigers didn't grade out great for home run upside against Carmen Ledzinski, but they are pulling the 8th highest Vegas total. They're also, I think it's probably for the same reason, just a little bit of a ding for power. 11th across both probability columns for 8 and 10 runs. But again, very healthily with the top of the board right there, only separated by a little bit. The White Sox are really interesting. You can see that they are clearly separated from this entire group and two teams below them as far as those probability columns go. They're facing Shota Imanaga, a solid left-handed pitcher. Matches up against them pretty well. They don't exactly crush the board in terms of projections, lower middle, I would say. But where they do stand out, and the reason I kind of let them float there above these two teams and show a little bit of their quality, is because of that home run mark. Imanaga, when he's going wrong, does have a little bit of premium contact problem, does have a home run issue. So it's probably one of those days where the White Sox just go for a couple long balls, maybe bend the day for Imanaga, but don't necessarily crack through as far as the big 10-run day that you need for DFS purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they're interesting for that. It might be an opportunity to mine one-offs. It also might, 12% kind of might, 4.8% kind of might lead to an explosive upside day if you do catch the day where Imanaga put a couple extra guys on ahead of that power. But it's really soaked up by Murakami, putting up almost, I think, double the magic number, right around there. Even lefty. Colson Montgomery pulling a nice number. And then you get Miggy Vargas, you get Randall Grichuk, righties, who pull decent power upside against the lefty. But otherwise, that's not a great looking spot. It's just opportunistic around some potential power. I don't love attacking Michael Wacha, especially with that diminished athletics lineup. They're showing plenty of quality through the ceiling numbers, but Waka generally pretty good, works deep into ball games. That Athletics team knocked down a bit by losing most of their best bats. The Mets against Walker Buehler, it's kind of similar. I'm not necessarily drawn to Buehler. It's just kind of in the middle of the board. He's 11th as far as the pitching projection rankings go. The Mets an up and down squad, missing some of the one of their best pieces, or their best piece. Very playable, reasonable power marks, kind of meh Vegas total that I think reflects where they're ranked. And then you get into the bottom of the board going up against Framber Valdez. The Pirates did get O'Neal Cruz back, activated from the 60-day IL today, but he's not in the starting lineup because they're the Pittsburgh Pirates and they're really, really annoying. Their general manager was out all over the media yesterday. They had Cruz at the stadium. He was with the team ahead of yesterday's game, was getting reevaluated, but they refused to say whether he was going to be reactivated until after today's lock for season long. Those of us who have them in their dynasty leagues and so on and so forth were incredibly frustrated. Roll the dice, have them in my lineup for the week. It's a weekly league. It changed the course of my day. I was like, they activated him. I got it right. He's going to be playing. He's going to be in my lineup even against Framber Valdez, a tough lefty. That's great. And then he wasn't in the lineup when they announced the actual lineup. Presumably back the rest of the week, though. Dynamite pickup for the scuffling Pirates, who are falling further and further behind the playoff race. I do think they're at least loosely playable, given the downside that Framber's shown in some of his starts, but that's typically not a pitcher we're looking to attack, and it's a lower-end lineup when they face a lefty. Colorado is benefiting from Coors Field, even in those terrible projections that you're seeing there, those terrible rankings, the low-end ceiling numbers. They're facing Blake Snell, who was absolutely tremendous over 5 innings with 10 strikeouts his last time out. I do think the innings continue to be a little bit short on Snell, but against a free-swinging Rockies team, he should be able to dominate even at Coors Field. And then you get Nolan McLean, and on the FanDuel slate, you get Chrissy Sanchez. San Diego against McLean, bottom-ranked, and then Miami against Sanchez, very likely to shut them down. Meech says, can you break down the best options of the cheapies since it may be a direction to jam the Dodgers? What are we talking? Cheapies on the mound? Yeah, you know the show, Meech. That's exactly where we're going. We're doing the new little stacks board feature to begin the show here, and then we dive into the runs board, which we're about to do. And then momentarily after that, there will be the pitching breakdown. But you can see some healthy totals outside of that 6.91 that the Dodgers are pulling against Sugano in that 11-run game at Coors Field to cap off the night. You do have two teams over 5. You've got another one at 4.96. You've got another one at 4.85. So it's unlike the other day where we saw all those lower totals across the industry. Nobody over 5 earned runs. I believe that was Friday's slate. Might have been Wednesday's. But different today, different kind of animal. So I do very much think that the Dodgers, again, extremely, extremely good chalk with all those extraordinary probabilities that they're showing of having a ceiling game in this spot. But if you're putting together lineups that are Royals and Braves heavy, that are Royals, Braves, Red Sox, Phillies focused, and you run some builds where you're just looking to combine those 4 different teams in various setups with one another and leaving the Dodgers out of the picture entirely, again, for a few lineup build runs, just so that you can make sure you're getting the population of those lineups and it's not all just those teams and then the lower end teams combined with the Dodgers. You do want to create that healthy mix because there's plenty of probability going through these teams as well to succeed, and their collective probability against the lone probability that the slate's going to be riding on there does begin to stack up a little bit. So a strong argument to be made for doing that. Again, not in any way advocating a full fade of the Dodgers. That is just not something I believe in. At the top of the board, FanDuel game only. Marlins look pretty low end against Chrissy Sanchez. He looks tremendous. I believe he's the top overall projected pitcher of the day. Jansen Junk, talented guy, but hasn't really put it together going up against that Phil's team, pulling nearly a 5-run total and plenty of power showing around the obvious bats there. Philly's one of the leading stacks on the FanDuel slate. Framber Valdez against the Pirates again. All signs point to Framber having a decent start here. 4 earned runs last time out, though, 5 2/3 against Cleveland. All signs were pointing toward Framber having a decent start in that one. He went out, struck out only 3, walked 5, allowed 6 hits, just kind of melted down. He gave up an uncharacteristic home run. He's allowed 13 this year. Power's up a little bit against Framber. We've talked about that launch angle, still being elite at like 6.5 degrees, but going up in year over year, year after year the last couple of years. Prior to that one, though, back-to-back 7-inning starts in which he only gave up 2 earned runs to the Athletics at Sutter, and then followed that with 7 shutout innings, 5 hit ball against the Mariners. Still has the ability to be tremendous, still excellent at keeping the ball in the yard, keeping the ball on the ground by and large. And against a Pirates team that, again, a little bit limited against strong lefties like this. I don't love their upside, but they are pulling a 4.27 implied total that's at least respectable. Carmen Lidzinski going the other direction. He's only allowed 8 homers in 11 starts, 99 and 2/3, pitching to a 3.79 ERA, a 4.41 xFIP on the season. Short outings recently, was pitching in bulk relief, went just 2 1/3 and a full start, 3 innings and a full start the last 2 times out. Gave up 4 earned runs to the Marlins and 5 earned runs to the Mets in those 2 outings. Prior to that, was a little bit more effective in the bulk relief stints, but it's just been mostly ugly and worse under the surface. So I definitely think we're looking to attack some Lidzinski with some Tigers bats. A 4.32 implied total for Detroit puts them squarely in the middle section of that stacks board. They're right there, but they are showing nice value marks. 6th by value on FanDuel, 5th by value on DraftKings, and I do believe there's a little bit more home run potential than that 14 might be indicating. And again, this 16 not offset by that much compared to those. Same thing with the 10 plus number. Pod's looking pretty low end against McLean, one of the top pitchers of the day. A couple frisky bats in that Padres lineup that we know about, but overall not looking like a go-to spot outside of maybe a few darts to be contrarian. McLean every now and again has had a bumpier start, just normal for a young pitcher. But last time out, 6 innings of 1-run ball against Atlanta. Struck out just 3, walked 2. Prior to that, 8 strikeout game, but gave up 5 earned runs over 5 against that low-end Cleveland lineup. Had ripped off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive 6-inning starts of 2 runs or fewer, and only gave up the 2 runs in 2 of those, or 3 of those going into that 5-run game. So it was absolutely tremendous. Had an ugly 6-run game against the Cubbies all the way back at the end of June prior to kicking that run off. So again, here and there has given up a couple, but primarily absolutely tremendous and going up against a very, very gettable Padres team. And it's Walker Buehler on the bump for the Pods. Again, that Mets team does look decent given the 4.19 implied total. They're playable. They were showing okay marks in kind of the middle of the board, but not a priority. Buehler pitching to a 4.88 ERA, but a 4.24 xFIP, a little bit more manageable under the surface. Moderate strikeouts, 100 Ks and 114 1/3 so far this year. The D-backs sending Mitch Pratt out to face the Red Sox. He's worked deep into the last 2 starts, gave up just 2 earned runs over 6 against Colorado in a home start, 4 strikeouts and a walk. 9 strikeout day over 7 innings against the Padres. Pretty tremendous. Just 1 hit, no earned runs, 3 walks in that one. And a 1-run day on 3 hits over 5 innings against Cleveland at Cleveland on July 31st to kick off this strong run. Pretty solid, but overall pretty also gettable. In most of his outings, outside of that 9 strikeout dominant performance against the Pods, he's been pretty hittable, pretty low end. So I do think that the Red Sox, at worst, in the way that they've been lately, frisky for putting bat on ball, get some balls in play and beat him to first base and just create some havoc like they've been doing out there. 4.85 implied total. They're also showing some power around the more obvious guys in that lineup, the actual quality bats. So they're very playable, as are the D-backs coming the other way from the lower total, 4.25 implied for them. They're going up against Brian Bayo, as mentioned, maybe the opportunity to limit some power upside, but I think they're interesting through those long tails that we're seeing. It's Alec Gamboa opening ahead of Brian Bayo for the Red Sox. Martin Perez, a very gettable lefty on the mound who has been mostly effective through the year. 2.96 ERA, but overperforming. He's got a 4.22 xFIP under the surface. He allows a lot of contact, doesn't really strike anybody out. Speaking to a fair amount of upside for that Twins lineup, 4.58 implied total for Minnesota. But I think the Braves are the more interesting side of that equation, coming in over 5 runs, going up against Bailey Ober. Ober has kind of pulled it together. Well, no. 5 earned runs in 6 innings in the last start. That was against the Orioles. He had given up only 3 earned runs and 2 earned runs in the last 2. Those were back-to-back games against KC. But overall for the season, 4.64 ERA, a 4.88 xFIP, so a little worse than that under the surface. 17 home runs allowed in 18 starts, including 3 in that start against the Orioles the other day. So a lot of downside pretty visible for Bailey Ober, and like the looks of that Braves lineup. They're also just affordable. They're easy to use, not cheap, but definitely everybody, all the top end performers are appropriately priced. At least on FanDuel, Michael Harris's price has gone down significantly for what the talent is. So really interested there. Again, I'm not really looking to use the Athletics to attack Michael Wacha here, I think. I'd rather have Wacha on the mound. The A's come in at a sub-4 implied total, one of the lower-end spots on the board overall. They do have some quality here and there, but Wacha, when he's going right, pretty tremendous. And even when he goes a little bit sideways, most of the time, the Royals are willing to give him 6 innings. I said the same thing with him and Seth Lugo the last couple times out, because they do go out there and do that. But overall for the season, he's only melted down 3 times, each of them for 6 earned runs. Back on April 22nd against Baltimore, 5 1/3, so went out there for the 6th inning. 5 innings of 6-run ball against Texas, and then a 4 2/3 of 6-run ball. But a couple times he went out and he'd given up 4 and still booked the 6 or 7 inning start. So you get depth, you get the opportunity to claw back even with his low strikeout rate. You get the opportunity to claw back the negative points from a couple runs allowed. And Wacha does creep out to, 30-point FanDuel starts, 15-point DraftKings starts with a little plus minus on either side at relatively affordable prices and typically pretty low ownership. I don't know how crazy popular he gets here. And then his Kansas City team, 5.22 implied total for them, definitely usable against Mason Barnett. Barnett went 5 innings, 3 starts back, 4 1/3 the last time out, 2 starts back and 4 innings. So he's gone the wrong way. Gave up 3 earned runs in the first one against Boston, 5 earned runs in each of the last 2 outings. So I would expect an absolute ceiling of 5 innings on Barnett here. Did find 7 strikeouts in that lousy 4 1/3 against the Reds at Cincinnati, but also gave up 3 home runs in that game. Has given up 3 home runs in each of his last 2 starts. Definitely could feed some upside in the direction of Kansas City at that monster total. Battle of Chicago, the White Sox coming in on the lower end of it, but I already talked about the potential for home run upside. Maybe you pick one off out of that lineup against Imanaga. That's the downside of him. He's allowed 28 home runs in his 24 starts on the season, 137 1/3. Even with that, though, pitching to a 3.74 ERA, 3.88 xFIP, kind of manageable, 130 Ks and 137 1/3. So that is a talented guy. When he goes right, everything's gravy, but you do get the occasional long ball against. 4.50 implied total for the Cubs against Luis Castillo. They do look more interesting. That said, Castillo had a tremendous outing last time out. 7 innings of 1 hit ball, 10 strikeouts, 2 walks. I think that's his best start on the season. Yeah, it looks like easily his best start on the season. Maybe finally found his form that last time out, but mostly been gettable all season long. 4.96 ERA. Does have a 4.28 xFIP under the surface, but has come down in terms of strikeouts, has been greatly diminished this season. And then the Coors Field game, Rocks don't look particularly interesting against Blake Snell, but they do still get the benefit of playing at Coors Field. Snell will probably be out of the game. Oh, he went 6. I said 5 earlier. He did end up going 6 in that first start back against the Royals. Struck out 10, walked 1, 3 hits allowed, 1 earned run allowed. Was tremendous monster fantasy start. I would expect around the same kind of a cap. When he gets inefficient, you'll see shorter outings for innings, but I would expect, relatively stretched out. He made like 4 rehab starts on the way back up. Tremendous upside for him. Most likely going to blaze a trail through this lineup. They're not really primed either to exploit the downside that he sometimes comes with around walks, just not what this Rockies team does well. So there's a very thin needle to thread, even in a Coors Field kind of a game against a pitcher like Blake Snell. And then you get into the Dodgers bullpen, which is very, very good. Even though they've run into some bumps in the road lately, that is a bullpen stacked with elite arms. So it's not one you're really looking to target. So I don't love that 4.25 implied on the Rockies, even though I'm usually talking about, hey, maybe the Rockies are the sneaky option at Coors Field because everybody wants the visiting team. Getting into that pitching board. Before I do that, real quick, hit the lineup button. When I hit the lineup button, you guys hit the like button if you haven't already. Get the show rolling here. Scrolling across the bottom of your screen too, by the way. Feel like giving us a test drive. Promo code TRYME, all one word, capital T, capital M, at checkout. Gets you 100% free first week, zero commitment required on a weekly subscription. All you do is pick the weekly plan, plug that in at checkout, and if you cancel it in between now and renewal date of a week, totally free, and you have committed nothing. It will renew at regular price, which is $6.90 something cents a week. It's under $1 a day. Access content for MLB, NBA, NHL, and NFL when everything's going on. Under $1 a day, all in one subscription. You can also enter the pitching picks contest and win a free month. Top of the board, Chrissy Sanchez only available for 11-1 offset price-wise dramatically on FanDuel, but very likely to blaze through that Miami team. Every now and again, they'll show some upside and find a monster game against a good pitcher. They've done that to us a couple times this season. And at 11-1, that does get a little bit bendy price-wise against what is a decent enough top end with those two in better spots. Miami a little bit better than the Padres, certainly better than Colorado. Now, it's arguable between Miami and San Diego, actually. But Sanchez, a different animal at the top of the board. McLean looks tremendous across both sites. Top option on DK at 9,800 and appropriately priced there, offset price-wise from the other guys by a couple $100, but that doesn't matter quite as much, and he's making that up any price difference in that point and change advantage that he has over Snell. Snell only potentially limited in terms of relative ceiling against Sanchez and McLean because he's more likely to come out of the game fairly early, even if things are going well. He's not going to go out there and give you a complete game tonight, or extremely, extremely unlikely. It would be very surprising to see the Dodgers let him do that. He's a precious commodity who's just here to get fully ready for October. That's the reason he's going to be pitching through September. Imanaga, you're just worried about the downside that comes associated with the long ball. You can see it's a little bit offset in both price and projection from the very top of the board. More than capable of delivering a little bit of ceiling on top of that number, but also capable of falling into the basement if there are a couple guys on when he gives up the long ball. One does some damage, two becomes a really ugly day where you go over 6 runs on the White Sox side and he goes into the tank for your money. And he is competitively priced with the Wakas, the Frombers, et cetera of the board. It's just offset from those top end guys. I would consider Imanaga a viable SP1 on DraftKings where you don't have Sanchez and you're looking at high prices on those two, but these guys are much better options. Using either one of those guys with somebody from the other part of the board, or if you can manage to afford it, those two guys together looks pretty tremendous. And they're not at crazy, stupid, broken prices where you can't do that. I bet you probably could find a lane through one of the cheaper stacks. Waka against the A's. It's a shame he's more expensive than Imanaga on DraftKings. Maybe that knocks his ownership somehow. And that's another setup where I wouldn't mind him with any of those top 3 guys on the DK slate, obviously. And I would be perfectly willing to consider Michael Waka as an SP1 in combination with, say, a Fromber for too cheap a price at 75. I don't really like Martin Perez. I'm not a huge fan of Castillo at this point in his career. I used to be. And that's not a good matchup against the Cubbies, but he did just flash a little bit of upside that's not necessarily directly in line with the $7,800 price on this pitching board. Any one of those 3 guys in combination with Waka, with Imanaga, I think is a perfectly viable SP1, SP2 combo. Obviously, you want to get these guys in line with those guys or with one another or with one from, not over, but that group. There is a distinct cutoff at Bailey over where it becomes maybe every now and again you can get through rolling the dice with him, and he's only 7,000 here. You don't get Jansen Junk. He would probably have been a viable option against that Phillies lineup, good as they are, low end as he's been in most of his starts, but you don't have him. 77 on FanDuel, I just don't think you need him where you can just reach a little bit higher and get a much better option. And even putting together 2 of the most expensive stacks of the day, I still had room for a better pitcher. I have no faith in Ober on FanDuel. 75, pretty low end looking. It's just about that $7,000 price, but know that he is limited as compared to some of the other options on the board that are a little bit more likely to find success. And he's going up against probably the best lineup out of this group. Buehler against the Mets for 65 becomes interesting on that DraftKings slate. I probably have more faith in him going up against that Mets lineup than, say, Brett Bournet, certainly in a short outing, Mladzinski against Detroit. So out of the bargain bin, it's Walker Buehler, I think, all day long. I don't like it. I don't really want to go there. I think there's a good argument to be made for just trying to, as much as possible, stay in that group. They're going to be really popular, but if you're just slapping together combinations through there and then maybe taking a more unique angle into just a couple Dodgers and finding success with some of those lower owned opportunities that I referred to, then I think you're okay. That is a 7-man group that's all playable. So it's not like you're restricting and we're saying, hey, you only want to use these 3 pitchers, these 4 pitchers. When you have 7 in that group at a variety of prices, there's enough flexibility through combinations that I think you're okay. I would leave Ober in, given the price, and then Buehler would be, again, the go-to value guy to put together with those guys. But I think he becomes the go-to value guy for basically everybody. He's going to be pretty popular there. And I don't think it aligns against what I would expect popularity to be when you consider his quality against even Perez, who I don't really like here, certainly Framber, certainly Castillo. Maybe Bratt just on depth for the 67. But those Red Sox have been so pesky. They're totaling out well. They're projecting pretty well. And then the bottom of the board is just super low end. There's nothing usable in these guys. Bayo, you're just throwing that $6,800 dart at bulk relief innings, which are really unpredictable. He's set up to be able to pitch 5+ in the bulk relief role, but it puts any kind of shot at a win in question. It's just a lower end spot, and he comes in higher priced than everybody else in the bargain bin. He's arguably the most talented guy down there, but tricky spot. And the Diamondbacks pulling it back up are showing 20% probability of putting 8 runs on the board, near 10% probability of putting 10 plus runs on the board. Not exactly primed to go to the opposing pitcher in that setup. So it's a really thin, really ugly pitching slate. FanDuel wise, I think your need to use group kind of just cuts off at Framber. He's cheap enough that you can get to a ton of him. Plenty of Waka, plenty of Imanaga through there. When you have opportunity, you can pay up through those guys. Every now and again, maybe you roll the dice if you're building a bunch of lineups. Sure, with Perez, with Louis Castillo. I don't think there's any reason to dip into this pool on FanDuel. You maybe build a couple dart throw type lineups around Walker Buehler, but what are you really truly offsetting that you can't reach with these 2 guys? Or probably even Framber. If that buys you one big chunk of differentiation or 2 different bats from a commonly used stack, then sure. There's reason that would be reasons to start weaving some of those guys into a large portfolio of lineups. If you're only building handfuls, I don't know that you necessarily want to use him to target those Mets. I don't know that you necessarily need to use Jansen Junk to target those Phillies for the same exact reasons. But those guys are low-end strikeout options. They don't particularly pile up ceiling points. Very likely to just come in around those medians or lower. That's what our median projection is. So not a great pitching group. What are you guys thinking out there? You guys sharing thoughts in the chat? Bunch of people hanging out here. Good to see everybody. Getting into the game by game momentarily. Yeah, Wayne, it's, Framber is usually just a, whatever his issue is, kind of on-off switch. I don't really sweat opposing lineup that much against a guy like Framber because he's so typically keeping the ball down. So I'm really not worried about any downside with him outside of just the usual mess that can come with Framber from time to time. That's a team that does hit the ball hard, but you sweat. You don't get O'Neal Cruz like I was referring to. Is that game? It's our second game up. I shouldn't skip ahead to it yet, but like you look at we were already considering, Esmeralin was in there, Triolo was in there, Brian Reynolds was in there, Nick Gonzalez back, but he's just a slap hitter and not much of a threat. Rafael Flores, some good premium contact numbers so far. Get a sneeze. Excuse me. Florida has some good premium contact numbers so far, but also some strikeout in there. Not totally sold. Jake Mangum has been effective hitting for average, but he's kind of low-end switch hitter. Nick York, Henry Davis. I'm not really worried about any of that. And what I just want to drive quality through is that 6.1 degree average launch, the ability to limit premium contact and power. You'd like the version of Fromber who used to strike more guys out, but we're not exactly. Thank you, Clintwood. But I think we'll take what we get here. And this Pirates team could push a little bit of additional strikeout in Fromber's direction as well. So, I'm not really worried about the righties. Most of them were going to be in that lineup anyway. So, I think it's a perfectly quality spot that's going to be basically decided by Fromber's just general head case in this. Let me go grab a tissue. I'll be right back. Half a second. That was a long half second. You guys see my butt crack when I stood up? These shorts are a little bit big. Just wearing like basketball shorts today. Joker and I haven't gone out for our walk today. That's usually when I fancy myself up. So let's dive into this thing. What do you guys say? This first game's not available on your DraftKings slate. This is your 640 game on FanDuel. Marlins at the Phillies. Chrissy Sanchez looks tremendous. 155 and 2/3 in his 25 starts, 28. A piece of tissue on my face? I feel like I do. Hang on. I have a camera here. You'll find out. Nope. 28% strikeout, 5.4% walk, inducing a 15.2% swinging strike rate. 2.54 ERA, basically backed up by that matching xFIP. Slightly higher Sierra. He is a tremendous option. He also keeps the ball down incredibly well. 2.7 degree average launch, leading to just a 2% home run rate. Very, very few and far between when you're talking about days where he's gone sideways. Look at the incredible degree to which he's above the average in both stuff and pitching plus. Absolutely looking to get to Chrissy Sanchez wherever I can for 11-1. He's very difficult to reach, but there are some interesting enough value-based options on the FanDuel slate that you could probably combine with, maybe the potentially interesting Diamondbacks that might go a little bit under-owned with some value showing, with those ceiling numbers showing. Maybe kind of a lane to put through with expensive and popular Chrissy Sanchez on that slate. On the other side, Junk, again, a guy who I do think is talented. Talked about it a couple times already this season. The stuff plus numbers come down to just floating barely above league average, but pretty tremendously above average in the other 2+ categories, and was a little bit better rated for stuff plus earlier this year. I believe last year rated out. No, last year was below average stuff. Excuse me. But earlier in the year, it was more in the 103, 105 kind of range and was looking really interesting. Has not put it together in any way. He's inducing just a 6.2% swinging strike rate, 17% strikeouts, and 6.4% walk. That's manageable, but he doesn't really have the ability to punch guys out if he happens to get in trouble via some base hit. And he does have a 1.32 whip, so too many guys are on base even with the low walk rate. You just get too many opportunities to succeed against this pitcher. And then he does allow a fair amount of premium contact through a fly ball trajectory that should lead to even more home runs, even more downside in that ERA. So a lot going haywire for Jansen Junk here. Doesn't look particularly usable at 77 on FanDuel, and leads to some Phillies bats at that near 5 implied total. Yeah, sure thing, man. Oh, are they officially back, Josh? That's awesome. Do we get that lineup in? And I just didn't notice. That is what, this game? Yeah, Michael Garcia and Vinny Pasquantino back for KC is tremendous for the middle of that lineup. I know I'm jumping ahead and kind of all over the place at the moment, but just since it was mentioned a little while ago by Josh Gillingham in the chat, that definitely pads out that Royals lineup. And my bet would be that both those guys go a little bit under-owned for their quality, even within stacks of that team. It's not like they're secrets, but Vinny has not been good this year, nowhere near the quality that he was. He's nice and cheap in the heart of that lineup from the left side. And then Michael Garcia was also somewhat diminished across his 294 plate appearances, and he's really cheap for his quality. Third base eligible on DK, second and third plus outfield on FanDuel for only 28. Yeah, those are two great gets. Nice pickup, Josh. Appreciate the call out there. Going all the way back to the first game, though. If you're looking at the Marlins against Chrissy Sanchez, it's pretty low end, even from a contrarian for contrarian's sake kind of a sense. Every now and again, when I've said that, they have delivered against premium pitching. I forget who it was earlier in the year that is sticking in my brain, but some other similar top end kind of an ace. And it went sideways on us, but I do not expect that here with everything Chrissy Sanchez has going for him. So if you're looking Marlins, I would absolutely be focused on some of those early right-handed power bats in Heriberto Hernandez and Augustin Ramirez. Both those guys do have true right-handed thump in the bat. Ramirez, kind of a downturn overall this year at 4% barrels, 39.6% hard hit, and just 155 plate appearances, only 2 home runs, only a 110 ISO. But if you look just to last year, 11% barrels, 47% hard hits, was really inconsistent, but does have a lot of power upside. Heriberto blasted the ball through limited sample last year, and up so far this year, 12.9% barrels, 49.5% hard hits. He's hit 18 home runs, swiped 8 bags, and 338 plate appearances, looking like a burgeoning star for the Marlins. So very realistic right-handed power against the lefty, who is very difficult to find any kind of upside for power against because he keeps the ball down so effectively. But those two would be priorities. And then some combination of X Edwards and Otto, or both, through your infield. Shortstop and second base eligible for both players, so just figure out which one you want, price-wise, positionally, and if you're taking both. That would be how to prioritize that lineup. If you throw in some Estrella Ruiz, just because he's leading off at 2,800, the skill set is much more aligned to just another outfielder outside of some stolen base upside, but he's getting on at a 373 clip right now. That's with a 369 weighted on base against just a 308 xWOBA. But he is blazingly fast, so it's believable that he could continue to defy xWOBA to at least some degree. It's just the power output he's had so far, that 214 ISO, those are very unrealistic to expect him to continue. He's in the right spot in the lineup to be usable, but on the 4-man FanDuel slate with the 2 middle infielders in play, and either one of them honestly playable at shortstop if you're misguidedly going to this team, I think you just go through the heart of the lineup and just play it right there. And there's very limited appeal at the bottom of the lineup. Javier Sanoa, not much of a bat. Same thing with Jimenez. Griff Conine is extremely interesting under normal circumstances, but lefty-lefty here against one of the best lefties in the game, I really question the quality. Has made fantastic contact, has 13 home runs and 186 plate appearances. Monster breakout underway for Griff Conine, but question the quality today. And then Brian Navarreto, where you don't need catches, I don't think we need to go to. Schwarb's masher, 12.86 in the home run model, I believe leading baseball with 37 home runs on the board. 368 on base to go with that. Just one of the best 3 true outcomes hitters in baseball. 17.7% barrel and 52% hard hits. Not many better than Schwarber. Throwing him against a high contact righty seems like a great idea to me. And again, nicely out ahead of the magic number in the home run model. Trey Turner, pretty resurgent over the second half. 17 home runs, 17 stolen bases on the board now. Just an 89 WRC plus still lingering there, but a tremendous spot in the lineup for only 3,200 with all the quality that comes with being Trey Turner, hitting between Schwarber, Harper, and then now Luis Arraez in the cleanup role. Alec Boehm, a resurgent Alec Boehm recently. There's a lot of good reason to consider playing Trey Turner. Oh, by the way, Rip Tommy John and oddly Hayden Panettiere. If you think about the things happening in threes, it's weird to figure out who the next person in that pattern might be. It's like when you get the SATs and it's like speaker, puppy dog, and then it shows you a picture of like a chair and it's like, what would this equal? It's like, I don't know, on that pattern. They're loud. Anyway, Bryce Harper. Tommy John. They made a good case for him on potentially making the Hall of Fame on Central this morning. In addition to obviously the huge impact that his Tommy John surgery had. Not that he invented the surgery, but he was the first guy to go undergo it. And he was also the first monster, operation comeback story like that in sports. So just a lot from that, but also won 288 games through his career, pitched for 26 years, 1963 to 1989, I think it was. Yeah, that adds up. So, I mean, just absolutely ridiculously long 26-year career. Limited for, it's funny, I was looking at the numbers. He was 4-time All-Star. Excellent, mid low threes career ERA and FIP. Struck out 11% of opposing hitters against a 6% walk rate. But he was an elite ground ball pitcher. Not that wins matter too much, but 288 is quite a few of them in a long compiler type career. But putting that together with the renown from the surgery and a name that will live on forever in the sport, it makes a lot of sense that he should go to the Hall, and they put other compilers like that in. Anyway, Bryce Harper looks tremendous at 35. He has the outfield eligibility now, which is nice positionally to flex this team around. 25 home runs, a 375 on base, 389 ex-WOBA. Shows a little bit more under the surface, even for Harper in a tremendous year. Makes great contact at the plate. He's arguably a little bit cheap for the quality that you're currently getting, with a little bit more to give. Arraez, tremendous table setter, 315, 350 front end of the slash line. In this configuration of that lineup, it's not the traditional way to think about a cleanup hitter, but looking at him behind Harper as a way to reset the table kind of makes some sense here for putting him together as a correlated scoring piece with Alec Bohm, maybe Brandon Marsh further down, some of the guys who knock runs in on a regular basis. Bryson Stott is in that mix as well. He's driven in 57, technically more than Brandon Marsh. It's very opportunity based for those hitters. Those guys do get to come up quite a bit because look at all the on base outside of obviously Trey Turner, but this has gone way up in recent weeks. There's a tremendous amount of on base just setting the table and giving these guys opportunity. So it's good correlated scoring 1 through 7, basically, in this Phillies lineup. Gives you good reason to play those guys. Bohm, nice and cheap at $2,700 at third base. 14 home runs on the board, including another monster few days in a row leading into this weekend. So definitely an interesting piece if you're going to Phillies bats. Either one of those lefties is very much in play. Real Muto, just kind of a mix and match where you don't need catchers. If you're building a bunch of Phillies, sure, you can get them a few times. Same thing with Justin Crawford. Need those guys quite a bit less than anybody else through here. And you've already got cheap options to lower your average cost through there. So no issue stacking the Phils 1 through 7. Seems like a pretty priority spot on the FanDuel slate. Chris Sanchez, Phillies bats, way lower end. It probably is Jansen Junk above Marlins bats, but I don't want either of those things. Welcome in the DraftKings slate. Jake Swales, 1966 to 1993 for Nolan Ryan. That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, again, some of those guys, some of those monster totals, stack up to some compiling going on, but obviously Nolan Ryan, elite for strikeouts, elite for no hitters. That was the other thing with that you'll really never see again. Tommy John. Let me pull it up here real quick. Where the hell is it? We're getting sidetracked by Tommy John, but I think it's interesting. 26 seasons from 63 to 89, 288 wins, 3.34 ERA, 3.38 xFIP, 2,245 strikeouts on a 11.4% strikeout, 6.4% walk. 162 of his 700 career starts were complete games. 46 of those were shutouts. 4-time All-Star. So again, just some crazy monster numbers that pitching from that much provide. Anyway, sorry, I had to answer a text message there that sidetracked me even further. So anyway, interesting discussion around Tommy John, but yeah, Nolan Ryan, obviously just crazy long careers that you don't see anymore. And when you think about how Ryan threw the ball, there's some dispute about the radar guns and the quality of measurements that we were getting back then, and what his fastball compared, the Nolan Ryan Express compared to a 106 mile an hour Jacob Misiorowski FanDuel. Distracted myself again looking at the note there. Fastball, the quality of his pitch, the stress on his arm versus the stress on these modern arms, and what you were getting from him versus what you're getting from these guys. I don't know that you're ever going to see a career of that kind of a quality from a guy who throws the ball like that. You might see another Greg Maddux type, who's a softer tosser, who is just so specifically elite control command that ends up pitching for 25 years and finding just tremendous success throughout. But a high strikeout like fireballer type to go that deep, not going to happen. Jake says guys back in the day were undoubtedly more tough and hard-nosed, or they were whining and crying in the clubhouse and being told to get out there anyway because they're getting paid to do it. So it might just be less understanding, certainly less medical science going on behind the scenes as well. Jamie Moyer, yeah, last of that breed for sure. Pitch forever. All right, let's get back on track here. Framber Valdez, talked about him a little bit already, 75.83. I just think on price, looks tremendous. Knowing what the quality is, knowing what we've gotten out of Framber over the years, some of what's in there is still very, very functional, as can be indicated by the low ground ball, the extreme low launch angle, the limited opportunity to hit home runs. Still rates out above average by stuff plus, still above average pitching plus numbers. 4.26 ERA against a 4.21 xFIP, not where we want it, but still manageable. Not tragic. 18.1% strikeout, down a few points against 8.5% walk. Again, not where we want it. Just a 9.54 strikeout minus walk. That's a bad indicator. But he's gotten very cheap along with that. It's not like we're paying $9,500 for him anymore. And he's going up against a Pirates lineup that, yeah, they've threaded in a couple few righties, but they're low-end options. Or they're under-experienced players that Framber's not going to have a big issue with. So a little bit of visible downside on just the general downturn in quality that he's put up this year, but not particularly because of a scary Pirates lineup, if that makes sense. Going the other direction, Carmen Mlodzinski, 63.68, striking out 18% with a 3.79 ERA, a 4.41 xFIP, 4.42 Sierra, as mentioned earlier in the show, had just transitioned back into a starting role with two pretty bad, very short outings in his last two, 3 innings, 2 1/3 of 5-run ball against the Mets, 4-run ball against the Marlins, struck out 1 in each of those games, walked 3 against the Marlins, just pretty low end overall, rates out very poorly as far as stuff. Pitching plus goes. Nice locator. 21% strikeout last year against just 6.4% walk again in 99 innings over 12 starts. Worked to a 3.55 ERA, 3.60 xFIP, was a little bit better last year. And as you can see, was good at keeping the ball down, keeping the ball in the yard. That's gone away somewhat in the limited sample this year. Hasn't resulted in home runs really, but the trajectory is way up. There just hasn't been a perfect collision of high trajectory, high exit velocity events, but they're there. They're waiting to happen. So maybe some more visible power downside, not necessarily reflected coming through for the Tigers. Some of his quality for limiting home runs so far is shining through for him. So that's why I said earlier in the rundown, I do think there's a little bit more potentially lurking power than is visible here for the Tigers. Overall, 4.32 implied total. I think very definitely usable here against Mlodzinski. I'd be more reluctant to go to the Pirates, but in a large portfolio of lineups, you can definitely throw some of them around the high-quality power bats at Framber and hope for the best. Hope he slips up in terms of the home run. He hasn't been perfect in that this year. Hope he puts a few too many guys on base via the walk. This lineup's drawing a 9.9% walk rate. So arguments on all sides. Going to the Tigers lineup, Glabber in the leadoff spot at 41 at 31. Nice and cheap for a guy getting on base at a 3.79 clip. putting up a 351 weighted on base against a 333X, 126 WRC plus. Said it at the beginning of the year, remains true. Gleyber Torres is just good. 18.8% strikeout against a 14.1% walk this year. Kevin McGonigal is one of the best rookies in a tremendous rookie class. 12 home runs, 12 steals. He scored 80 runs while slashing 281, 386, 418 this season, 132 WRC plus. Kid just doesn't slow down. Once he figures out how to hit the ball a little bit more consistently hard, forget it. He's going to skyrocket. Dylan Dingler, one of the better catchers all of a sudden. 26 home runs in 489 plate appearances this season. Coming in with a 22.1% strikeout against 6.1% walk. He's lowered the strikeout a little, pushed the walk a little in positive directions. Solid for premium contact. He's pushed the barrel rate up a little bit. Lost a little around consistency year over year the last 2 years as far as the hard hit rate, but he's exchanged it for tremendous output. So you take it. 128 WRC plus. Slightly better 360 xWOB under a 354. Actually, he's just absolutely tremendous. And on FanDuel for only 34, when you're really, you've got no Torkelson in the lineup. So that is your go-to first base option on this team now. That's perfectly playable at that price. It's arguably cheap. It's definitely less expensive than 55 on DraftKings, but he fits into catcher over there. So easy enough to justify. Colt Keith is cheap from the left side, 3,328, 9 home runs on the board. It's another guy who knows how to hit the ball hard. He's done so a little bit less frequently overall this year, but it's in there. He's hit 9 home runs in 352 chances, 330 xWOB under a 325 actual, 108 WRC plus. It's a quality player for the cheap price at a key position at third base on DK, multi-position eligible on FanDuel. McKinstry's more of a mix and match moving part, pretty low end, 337 plate appearances this year. Hey, Lee has found some interesting contact, 8.4% barrel rate from time to time, finds an upside batted ball event, 6 home runs in 217 plate appearances, only has a 289 xWOBA under an already below average 309 actual WOBA to be aware of. So just a wrinkle there, probably not as good as the 8.4% barrel rate might lead you to even think. But he's put up some quality. He is at least usable as you go down this board. Brett Callahan, mix and match for the dead min on DraftKings. No price on FanDuel, not available. Max Clark, the very interesting rookie. Home run on the board in his 63 plate appearances, holding his own 259, 317, 414. Nothing standout yet. A 320 weighted on base above a 288 xWOBA, but a 105 WRC plus puts him above average as far as run creation goes so far, and a lot of pedigree there for only 38-28 in the outfield. And then the corpse of Javi Baez. 269, 294, 369, 2 home runs in 136 chances. He's here. He's playing. Tigers, wildly up and down season. On the Pirates side, if you're choosing to attack Fromber, I think your key bats are absolutely, like I said before, just focus on these double-digit barrel rates. Oops. That's not the control button. Right? You're taking a bit of a shot around Rafael Flores, but it's a cheap way to occupy catcher on that slate at 3,000. He's hit 4 home runs in his 47 plate appearances in the show. So if you're just rolling the dice with right-handed power against Fromber, then that would be an option for that price. Brandon Lau struggles overall lefty historically, but has monster upside for power. If they chase Fromber, then you probably get at least one opportunity against a righty somewhere through the game. It's also a reasonable way to fill second base. He's not completely inept in this spot and would be hitting in a correlated scoring spot if Esmeralda Valdez and Brian Reynolds are doing anything. Both those guys have real power. Valdez has hit 14 long balls in 222 plate appearances. Everybody's aware of the breakout by now, but that would be a key bat. He's getting on at a 374 clip, but he's only got a 347 xWOBA under that 399 actual. It's a tremendous xWOBA at 347, but it's not 399, right? So obviously a big difference there. But if he's on base, Brian Reynolds gets opportunity. Brandon Lau still gets opportunity. Jared Triolo just in the lineup because he's right-handed overall, slap hitting focused, having a pretty low end season. Nick Gonzalez also a slap end. Now, hold on one second. I'll be right back. The landlord's here. They have to paint the place. I think I mentioned the other day they have lead-based paint inspections. He's got to look at the place, apparently. I'll be right back. Whew, always something. More than 1%. Jamie Moore threw a 62-mile-an-hour curve in his prime. Jake says, I love baseball combos like that. Very interesting. Gain even more perspective on it. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, just the way that the game changes and evolves and then goes back over the years. There's a lot of buzz about there's a kid in the Yankee system. He's in Somerset right now in Double-A, who has his grip all the way up the bat. He's choked all the way up the bat with his hands a little separated, Ty Cobb style. He's super fast, Chandler Simpson type. Just put the ball on the ground and beat it to first base, steal bases, like old, like 1890s old school type baseball. Maybe making a little revolution around the Chandler Simpsons and just trying to pick off. It's the same idea as Moneyball, different concepts through the math of the game, but just looking to pick off what has now become an underrated, undervalued skill set in a player like that who can hit for average, create chaos out there, swipe you a key base, and kind of offset the math a little bit, where if you can push the probability of successfully stealing that base, then your opportunities, your potential run creation around stealing bases goes up, and you can break the math of that a little bit. And that became, in the rush for everybody to get to power hitting on base specialists, which is still the key, as Moneyball first drug out, people started to devalue the Chandler Simpson types. So now those guys have gained a little bit of traction in all right, those guys have become inappropriately rated, and they've become, again, somewhat assets. So it's just, real interesting back and forth. Over the years, historically, the mound has been raised and lowered a few different times, changing how pitching works and the impact that it has on bats and power. You go through the dead ball era and things like that. So just deep, long, really interesting history of a evolving game that goes back and forth. Anyway, I think we went through the entire Tigers lineup there. On the Pirates side, we're most of the way through. We're here. Jake Mangum still probably going to be playing regularly in the outfield. He's had a successful year, 300, 351, 391. Ultimately just a quad A older type player, but finding success via the hit tool. Another lower end slap hitter in this lineup, but a guy who has succeeded a little bit. So if you're looking for a fifth man in behind those power bats, he's misplaced in the lineup for that, but maybe you pick off a little correlated scoring around Mangum. He would be an opportunity there. Nick York, Henry Davis just cheap down toward the bottom. Maybe Davis slides in if you need a cheap catcher, but you already have Rafael Flores there for much better opportunity at 3,000. That all said, Pirates pretty low end against Fromber here. I would definitely be interested in him. I'm going to say Fromber probably at top of your board there, then followed by Tigers bats. Pirates bats ahead of Mlodzinski. Really uninterested in anything Mlodzinski here. Continuing on, let me hit the lineups button. If you haven't done it already, hit the like button. It's down there somewhere, a little thumbs up, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you get a chance. Some lineups look like they're coming down. Scrolling across, hey, Joker's really excited. There's people here measuring the apartment. Dad's talking about baseball, and all sorts of things are going on for Joker. Good boy, buddy. Just chill. If you get a chance, scrolling across the bottom of your screen, just went by promo code try me all one word, capital T, capital M, free first week over at rotoscouts.com, where the projections live. Get behind the paywall, use the projections tonight, see what you think of them. Also going on, our pitching picks contest. I'll pull that up real quick here. Come on back after the show, leave a comment on the video. Got to pick the pitcher of the day. I'll take somebody off the board. I haven't done it yet. Who's going to put up a quality start, which is 6 innings of 3 earned runs or fewer, plus 8 or more strikeouts. Pretty thin for that on this one. I tell you what, I'm not going to take anybody off this board. It's too thin a board to take anybody off of. So just got to pick quality start plus 8 strikeouts. 1st to 5 wins a free month of Rotoscouts content. Andy is currently in the lead with 2. Andy and Meech, the only correct picks so far. It's a challenging contest. You come back, you go get it. This is today's stacks board. You get that behind the paywall over at the website, along with all the home run picks, pitching projections, hitting projections, various boards and probabilities. Jump into the Discord as well. It's linked down there in the description for the video. Come hang out. Join the community. Anywho, Padres, 3.89 implied total going up against one of the top pitchers of the day. Nolan McLean looks tremendous. 3.42 ERA, 3.40 xFIP backing it up. 28% strikeouts, 8.8% walk. We need to bring that down a little bit to crack into true ace territory, push the strikeout into 30% range, but he is right there, and he's going to get there. Sub 3% home run rate on very strong ability to keep the ball down to a fair launch angle, 9.4 degrees, 35.8% hard hits, induces weak and medium contact with regularity, below 88 miles an hour of exit velocity. As I've said before, you can't even go back in time at that speed. So looks fantastic for 98 on DraftKings, your top option there. 95 on FanDuel, slightly behind Chrissy Sanchez, but for the difference in price, it's more than eclipsed as far as the quality goes there. So fantastic option either site, and a good target for him with this Padres team in town. Buehler's only 65 on DraftKings. That's reasonably, striking out 20% against the too high 9.5% walk rate. 4.88 ERA, but a 4.24 xFIP, pitching a little tiny bit better under the surface. Not exactly doing it by limiting anything, though. He's allowed a reasonable mid-grade type trajectory, fair amount of premium contact, though he's not over the line in any of these marks. You would expect this to equate to like a 3.25, 3.50 type percent home run rate. So maybe a little tiny bit of luck involved there. Below average across all three categories in terms of the plus categories. Only one pitch grading out even slightly above average. It's that slider. So ultimately looking more like a target for Mets bats. But when we're talking about the bargain bin, he is probably the highest quality pitcher from that below $7,000 price bin. And I probably do like him at 65 against the Mets better than Bailey Ober at 7 against the Braves. I think you take your chances probably with these other guys, though there is a fair argument to be made against Martin Perez against the Twins on the other side of that camp. So Buehler's in the mix there. FanDuel, I really don't see it. Depth-wise, quality start last time out, 1 earned run in 6, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. Had not gone 6 since June 3rd. Prior to that one, has gone 6 4 times all year. Each time was a quality start, but you can see what I'm getting at. Few and far between. And these Mets are quality enough. They're fairly low strikeout against his already low strikeout rate. They're not great at drawing the walk this year, but there are a few guys, including their stars, who can do it, and there are a few guys who have been better at doing it in years past. So I'm not totally sold on the quality of Walker Buehler here. If you're going pods against McLean, seems a little bit low end, but it's probably a better option for contrarianism than taking the Marlins against Sanchez. Nando Tatis, second base eligibility on FanDuel still sings. Love that upside that he provides at that position. Much, much better than just another outfielder, but appropriately priced at 54 on DraftKings. 13 home runs, 28 steals, a 355 on base, 118 WRC+. He's pretty tremendous up toward the top of the board and a great way to get the lineup started with this team. But again, we're just kind of leaning into some Nolan McLean quality here. If he gets broke, Nando's probably one of the guys who's done it, though. Jake Cronenworth at 28, at 26, not a two-hitter, more of a just slap hitter, get on base, set the table for other guys type of a bat. Mid-teens type power in a great year, but overall just more of a mix and match quality guy. I'd like to get him out of that 2 spot. He's playable anywhere that you find him in the lineup, though. He's probably a little higher end at this point in his career than, say, Bogey, Luis Rengifo, positionally maybe Luis Campusano. Manny Machado, one of the top end pieces in this lineup, 23 home runs to lead the team. Resurgent second half so far, let's say. Found a lot more premium contact, a lot more quality output for power. The consistency is probably just never going to appear overall this season, but 328 XWO, but a shoot for under that 305 actual. Maybe he gets himself back to a 320 before it's all said and done. Maybe he claws his way above a 200 ISO. There is at least power-based upside still present for Manny. Ty France had a tremendous year. He's only 39-29 across sites at first base. That's a good buy if you're going to this team already. Hitting for a little bit of average, getting on base, hitting for a little bit of power. It's realistic as well. The barrels, the hard hits are all pretty consistent, and they're there. All of these things, as I said earlier in the year, had been present here and there for Ty France through his career so far, but he'd never put it together this much and this completely and this consistently. And now he's done it for a nice chunk of season. This is a full half season at this point. So very sold now on Ty France. Some small mechanical changes that they highlighted on Central the other day that went into this surge. So not a bad year. Not a bad option today either. Jackson Merrill at 43.32. Low end as far as the slash line goes, but the counting stats are more than there and can deliver big fantasy scores. 334 xWOBA lurking under that 309 actual. Disappointing season for some, but the counting stats are what I'm looking at here, and that's what pays the bills for DFS. So definitely interested if I'm going to this team. He's a reason why. Campusano's cheap where you need the position catcher-wise. 10.4% barrel, 45.8% hard hit. Also slashing 313, 409, 516 over his 149 plate appearances with 5 home runs. That's a tremendous stretch. Not likely to keep it up if you gave him, that same chunk of plate appearances 2 more times this season. It wouldn't look anything like this by the end. But overall, that's a quality catcher bat who has been able to put good wood on the ball. Very interested for the cheap price on DK. Gavin Sheets from the left side against a very high-end righty. If you're going to this team, you want to at least consider the lefty upside. I like it probably a little bit better. I left him out of that group when I was comparing to Jake Cronenworth because he does have more realistic power upside from the left side of the plate. He's also just a lower-end hitter in terms of average on base skills, but 16 long balls, grab a little bit of potential to finish off some correlated scoring if you're going through the heart of that lineup for only 27 on your DraftKings slate. First base eligible for 26 on FanDuel. Bogey's had a mostly lost year, just an 89 WRC plus. Does have that interesting 325 xWOBA, slightly above average compared to the low end, way below average 296 actual. 11 homers, 16 steals if you just want to look at the counting stats. Every now and then contributes. Okay contact. And then Renifo's been interesting since joining the pods. Overall, it's a low-end 317 plate appearances, but he's given them some quality, and he's very cheap, particularly on FanDuel, through 3 key infield positions. Just another outfielder at that price on DraftKings. Mets bats getting a lot of quality out of these two in the 1 and the 4 spot. AJ Ewing, Carson Bench, the 2 left-handed rookies. Both guys are getting on base with quality. Bench is now overtaken Ewing with that 335 on base versus the 324. Whoever goes into the leadoff role seems to be dipping as far as on base quality goes, but either one of those kids can give you a little power output, can give you a little bit of stolen base upside. Bench has 14 home runs, 18 stolen bases. He's outdoing Bo Bichette as far as quality overall this year. 112 WRC plus out of him, 343 xWOBA says there's a little bit more to give. And I think that's probably the deciding factor between the two is that xWOBA that he's carrying. The ability to drive the ball a little bit more effectively than maybe Ewing offers, a little bit more consistency of on base, hitting for better average, finding better outcomes. Ewing striking out a little bit more with that 25.7% rate, but also drawing more walks, not miscast in the leadoff role. Definitely correlated with Frankie Lindor, Bo Bichette in a big way. Those are 2 priority bats in this lineup. Only 45.33 for Lindor is nice and cheap. 12 home runs, 334 on base, 118 WRC plus. Quietly been kind of killing it since coming back a few weeks ago. Bichette, less so, 43.29, 12 home runs. He's pulled himself up to an adequate enough slash line, but still below average, 96 WRC plus. You'd really like to see that crest 100 at some point. 325 xWOBA, still room to grow under the surface and maybe gets him there. Very playable at third base. I don't really want him at short on FanDuel, particularly because I need Lindor there. But even if I'm not using Frankie for some reason, I don't love Bichette at short. There's higher end options, but third is fine for him. Lou Bob hasn't put great bat on the ball through the season. 6 home runs in 175 chances. Just too much missed time, too much inconsistency. Another completely lost year for an incredibly talented raw skill set kid. Incredibly talented kid with a tremendous raw skill set for what we need. But he's just lost in the weeds right now. 34-28 across sites. He's nice and cheap. You get any given slate upside for sure to throw at Walker Buehler. So if you're going to the Mets, there's nothing wrong with including Lou Bob. But it's difficult to say he's a really compelling reason to go to them right now. Jared Young is interesting. Did not hit our home run for us yesterday as the home run pick of the day on Sunday, but had a nice game and delivers quality. The prices remain very, very cheap. First base only is fine on DK for the money. Outfield eligible. I'd rather have him in the outfield, I think, on FanDuel. 8 homers on the board, a 340 on base, over 244 chances. That's a quality lefty. I like him a little better than Marcus Semien, Jorge Polanco. And then you get to Frankie Alvarez, who's only 35 where you need catchers. Kid mashes baseballs, 13 home runs, a 16% barrel rate against a pitcher who allows plenty of contact and a fair amount of premium contact. Love the upside for Frankie Alvarez if you're going to the Mets. So monster lurking down toward the bottom of the lineup. That cheapens him up too. If you go there for catcher, let's say yes to the 2 stars. Let's say yes to Lubob, and then we're getting one of either Benj or Ewing. Lineup builds itself. Or, honestly, you get even cheaper and go to Young and forgo the 2 young lefties there, which might be the way to build it. I fill out most of the infield. I mean, that version of it becomes a 5-man stack for 18-4 total, 3680 apiece, 3680 average. And you get Lindor, Bichette, Lubob, guys that a year ago you would have been like, damn. Well, Lubob maybe a little bit longer, but you get me. Jared Young, plenty of upside for cheap. And you fill out with a great catcher option just because he's hitting 9th. Who cares? That's a good way to build this Met stack, and you can pivot either Lubob or Jared Young into Carson Benj, AJ Ewing. Really interesting way that stack comes together, particularly with the 5-man build on DK. It's less appealing just because it's fewer options through those interesting cheapo names on FanDuel, where you're just going to be like, all right, I want those 2, and now I only get 2 more pieces. So it just becomes a little less appealing, but I would probably go Jared Young there, and then I don't need to dip all the way down to Alvarez because I don't need the catcher. So it's probably Lubob, but you can make a compelling argument for either of the other outfielders. But they're cheap. And again, lower end rating, but not bad as far as that tail's concerned. 17% probability plays just the same as 18.1 as far as their probability of going over 8. Same thing with that 7.59% probable. Plays the same as up here, just slightly behind these 9% probables of going over 10 runs. So it's not a bad team as far as spiking a ceiling game. And they're showing a great value mark. That's a 5th home run mark and a great value mark, 8th by value on DraftKings on that shorter slate. So I like that upside. Nolan McLean, Mets bats, Walker Buehler, even the Walker Buehler DraftKings, Padres bats, Walker Buehler FanDuel. I really don't think he's necessary on FanDuel. And DraftKings, he's just the best of a bad bargain bin. Joker got Clint Wood's dog to bark. Morgan, I feel like we dove into Fromber quite a bit already, but is he actually viable finally? Did he figure it out a little? I think he's just been mostly viable through the season. 4.26 ERA isn't exactly where we want him, but he's given us our depth that we're looking for most of the time out. He's just like, that ERA is driven up by, and it did happen, like you can't not count it, but a 6-run day, 6 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning against the Cubs on July 21st is going to devastate your ERA, even in a large sample of a season. He also had a 7 earned run day, 10 runs total on 9 hits in just 3 innings back at the beginning of the season against Boston. So some of those numbers bend the day, and an 8 earned run day in just 5 innings against Minnesota all the way back on April 8th. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not that one, 7, 8, not that one, 9, 10, 11. Frommer's got 11 quality starts in his 24 outings, so 11 times he's gone out there and given you 6 innings or more of 3 earned runs or fewer. And then those two where I said not that one were also above 6 innings, but he gave up 4 earned runs in those starts. So quality starts, but not quality starts statistically. He's, again, strikeouts are down somewhat, and they really haven't reemerged in this last run. Last time out, he gave up 4 earned runs in 5 2/3, just struck out 3, walked 5, but 2 strong 7-inning starts prior to that one. But in those 2, he only struck out 5 against the Mariners, 6 against the Athletics. They're just good outings overall. And again, Frommer doesn't necessarily need Ks because he typically works deep into a game. 9 strikeout day back in July 9th, again against the Athletics. 7 innings, 3 hit ball, 1 earned run allowed, and 9 Ks. That was his peak for strikeouts on the year. A couple 8 strikeout games along the way. But yeah, Ks are down a little bit. It slightly checks the ceiling for Frommer. It's also had a little bit of an impact year over year. Like last year, his median would typically come in the 29 to 31 point type range, depending on who he was facing. And that was probably what his average was. This year, it's more in the like 25 to 27 and a half, 28 point type range, depending on who he's facing. That's around where his average is. But again, any flaws that we've seen from Framber this year, any of those, major downside days that he's had are completely absorbed by this price and that price. For a guy who is very likely to go out there and give you 7 high-end innings against a fairly, lower middle of the road, let's say, to be nice, kind of a team. Plenty of strikeout here for him to go find a few strikeouts. There's a little bit of downside in walk, but not, tragic. Some of that is just these 3 guys. So if it gets away from Framber, it's probably around a little bit of walk and a little bit of power from those 3. But I like the upside. Any concerns, any struggles this year are fully priced in. This is a pitcher who is 2,000 more than this on DraftKings and 1,500 more than that on FanDuel most of the time last year and in recent seasons. So full faith. Might not work out. That's always been Framber. Every now and then he just goes sideways a little bit. A lot of balls that are well struck but on the ground, and if they happen to get through or on a line drive type trajectory, can lead to downside type days. Speaking of downside days, Mitch Bratt facing the Red Sox. They're pulling a 4.85 implied total. What a transition. 17.5% strikeout, 13.3% walk-in, 33 and 2/3, 7 innings, 7 starts thus far for Bratt. You can see he's pitched to a 3.74 ERA, but a targetable, ugly 5.59 xFIP, 5.58 Sierra lurking under the surface. He's allowed a 3.50% home run. Some of that is probably circumstantial considering the low end or the high end low hard hit rate and low exit velocity numbers on average, but the extreme fly ball trajectory that is allowing, that's going to lead to just some home run on fly ball rate type output. So some downside there for Bratt, something that the Red Sox could certainly expose. You get a nice home run number on Wilson Contreras, also a respectable enough one on Willie Abreu, even lefty here. Neither guy over the magic number, but they're 2 believable home run bats. Everybody else in this lineup, with apologies to Adley Rutschman, as we've highlighted throughout the year, in some way, shape, or form, is an overperformer. Ceddanne Rafaela overperforming this season in terms of that slash line at 285, 323, 463, as evidenced by a 285 xWOBA under his 340 actual. If you gave him an ongoing, we're closing in on 500 plate appearances now, right? He is going to end up with good numbers this season, undoubtedly, even if he has a tragic September. But if you gave him another 500 plate appearances, I guarantee you these numbers would be way down in that second half. It's just we're going to run out of time for it to normalize, and he's going to come up with a positive year. That's how the numbers work in these type samples. But he is not the player that he necessarily looks like this year. That said, if you're going to Red Sox, he's been dynamite for DFS. He's been, in years past, a good contributor of counting stats. So he's always valuable for DFS play as a correlated scoring piece when going to this team, particularly on FanDuel where he adds second base eligibility. I don't love him at short, but he adds on to the outfield eligibility for a fair price for a guy hitting second in a pretty critical lineup. So that's very, very playable, despite what I think of the overperformance. And it's, again, it's not me, it's not bias. It's just what the numbers say. This is me telling you numbers, not injecting opinion here. There's fact, there's opinion. You can look at events, you can have your opinion on them, but you can't disagree with them. It's just what's going on. Might be talking about something else. I don't know. Nick Sogard, 31-26. Pretty low end. 353 on base is great. No home runs, no steals. 12 runs scored, 5 ribbies in 121 plate appearances, a 91 WRC plus, 306, 303 xWOBA weighted on base. So a pretty artificial 353 on base right now. Very skippable low end piece who, sure, good position in the lineup. He's cheap. If you're building a bunch of Red Sox, or even if you're just building one and you need to get cheap at, say, second base, third base, last man in type of a thing, he's in position to provide correlated scoring with the bats that you want to get to here. So he does make sense, but he should be a very low expectation player. I don't know what that was. Adley is only 4,000. Not a bad way to fill catcher from this team. Something they haven't really given us throughout the season. He's 3,000 on FanDuel. Very playable over there, but you do get some back and forth between what do I want to do, catcher util-wise, first base util-wise, and do I want to spend both those positions on the Red Sox? At least hit 8 home runs in 306 chances. He's found some better contact this year than he was in the last couple of seasons, but still lower end as far as the power output goes, still lower end overall as far as the general slash line, the anything that's not opportunity based. These guys do provide some opportunity, but only one monster on base there is coming from Wilson Contreras, who is as likely to clear the bases as he is to fill them. So it's not a great spot as far as opportunistic hitting. Caleb Durbin dramatically overperforming. 321 weighted on base, 289 xWOBA, 12 home runs, 14 steals. I do think he will continue to overperform xWOBA in terms of his ability to just beat the ball to first base, his very low strikeout rate, low walk rate, so a lot of poorly struck balls in play, and he's just speedy enough to get there. But that still ultimately leads to just a basically average type player at best. 321 weighted on base is league average. That is right around the league average. 101 WRC plus is a point above league average. 12 home runs does not make you special. And though that is an outlier for him for a little bit of power uptick. Sure, he can bang the ball off the monster, find a double, find a little bit of additional extra base hit bonus potential from it, drive the ball over it every now and again. But ultimately, this is, as I compared him to the other day, this is Ernie Clement. This is not a player to be overly excited about, particularly from a DFS point, even though he's done it a few times, even though he's put up some big scores and has been a massive part of their surge here. 310 xWOBA under a 332 actual so far for Andrew Monasterio. 109 WRC plus, that doesn't seem all that real. 6 homers, 4 stolen bases in 273 plate appearances. Limited as far as premium contact goes. Not an ideal way to fill shortstop on DK. 27, more of a mix and match guy across 4 positions on FanDuel. We had Monasterio, 135 plate appearances last year, 273, 19, 437, a 111 WRC plus. Overperformed his weighted on his expected WOBA again, 4 home runs in that small stretch. 142 lower end plate appearances the year before in 2024. Going all the way back to 23. Had a similar type year in 315 plate appearances, but low end overall, 3 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 87 WRC plus. There's not a lot there. Eli White, just a mixer in the outfield. So yeah, 2 critical pieces, and then pick your poison. Whatever you feel like putting together with those guys. They've been finding it, making it work. Much like I've said a few times about the Tampa Bay Rays, you're just hoping to spin that wheel and get it right on all these other just also random type talents around the obvious key guys in that lineup. On the D-back side, going up against an opener and then Brian Bayo. Thank you, Greg B. and Cohen. That is exactly the correct way to put that. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but not their own facts. Yes. Except for Joker, who's entitled to do whatever he wants. 3,300 for Lars Nootbaar in this projected leadoff role. Let's see what we got this lineup in. Bayo in 83 2/3, 8 starts this season, working to just a 17.5% strikeout, a 4.84 ERA, but does have that interesting 3.91 xFIP under the surface, a 4.02 Sierra that speaks to his quality over the years. He's also very good at keeping the ball down, 6.5 degree average launch, even in this diminished season, 3.01% home runs. Last year, that was 2.29 on a 9 degree average launch. He pitched to a 3.35 ERA, but had a 4.39 xFIP, 4.45 Sierra under the surface, was similar as far as the strikeout numbers go. He's found a little bit more swinging strike this year, but hasn't really paid it off in terms of any additional strikeouts. The truth is probably somewhere around a 4-run pitcher. This Sierra number is pretty accurate, somewhere that 4.25 maybe on the higher side. But has underperformed somewhat through here. Has underperformed, allowing some extra base hits, a little batting average on balls in play in that whip at 1.43 against just the 7.4% walk rate. So all those balls in play that he allows have just gone negative against him. Capable of stringing together 5 or more high quality innings in a bulk relief role here. 6,800. I don't love playing that wild card on DraftKings, particularly with a low strikeout guy. If you're going to come in here and have a guy rack up strikeouts for 5 innings, then sure, it gives you a little bit of additional upside, a little bit of additional faith. A guy like Bayo, is just more likely to come in and maybe shut the Diamondback side of it down rather than really standing out for quality, even from a low-end bargain bin type thing today. On FanDuel, I don't think you need to consider him at all. So low-end DraftKings value dart, maybe through a very thin needle, and not on FanDuel. Did I say that Mitch Bratt's not really an option on the mound? I meant to. I know I talked about his numbers a little bit when talking about the Sox bats, but I don't think Mitch Bratt's all that interesting at the 67 and at 73 on FanDuel. There's just no appeal there. Did not get the Diamondbacks lineup there, but assuming that this is what we get with no Ketel Marte again, it does take a big piece away from them up toward the top of the lineup. Did Marte go on the injury list? I know he's banged up. Missed a game over the weekend. Left knee soreness day to day. He missed Saturday, played Sunday. Is that what it was? Regardless, keep an eye out for Ketel Marte. If he plays, a little bit of a bump to their lineup and their ceiling for sure. But with this version of the lineup, they were showing interesting ceiling from kind of that mid-board type spot where they weren't necessarily cracking through for upside. They don't show tremendous home run marks because they're measured out against Bayo here. But know that once we get into some other bullpen arms, that changes the paradigm a little bit. This team succeeds a lot via their table setting, their on-base skills anyway. They do have some power, but it's not the main focal point for them. They're fairly low strikeout, reasonably high walk, and just a lot of skills for getting on base. So there's a lot of path for them to beat this Red Sox pitching tandem today. Newport would be an interesting piece of that at 33.27. He's nice and cheap in the outfield. He gets on at a 332 clip, has a 327 xWOBA with a little bit of premium contact upside, 9% barrel, 48.6% hard hit. Just hasn't really found a ton of results, but a really interesting spot in this Diamondbacks lineup if he's leading off. If he ends up down here somewhere, he's just as usable because he does have a little bit of realistic power and can succeed with multiple plate appearances of just quality. Corbin Carroll, their star, 18 homers, 17 steals, a 344 on base, a 125 WRC plus, easy to reach even at 36.53. Geraldo Perdomo, an absolute priority at shortstop. If you're going to this squad, 9 home runs, 17 steals, getting on in an elite 357 clip, has changed his season around. Great table setter for guys that follow, and you get interesting bats through here. You know I love Gabby Moreno, 4,300, 3,100. He's only slashing 308, 385, 465 as a just too cheap every single day catcher. The price has gone up a little bit on DK, but it's still way too cheap for the quality. He's also got a little bit more power than that. 9 home runs, 4 stolen bases is not great output. 42.3% hard hits. It was 43.4 last year. There's reasonable ability to strike the baseball. Very low strikeout, very high walk rate. That's an excellent option at catcher who hits cleanup behind good bats basically every day. Max Kepler, low-end 124 plate appearances. We got a lot of history with Max. Know that he can drive the ball from the left side against a high-contact righty. It's just Bayo checks that a little bit with his ability to keep the ball down. So some back-and-forth conversation there with Max, but at those prices, he's very playable, and most of that is baked in. Nolan Arenado at 4, at 29. He's hit 20 home runs. I'm surprised to see him get to that total. Said it earlier in the year that I didn't think he was going to get there, so kudos in 458 plate appearances. There's a lot to dislike about everything underlying, though. Those 20 home runs are incidental. They've come on terrible contact when it comes to barrels and hard hits. He's carrying just a 300 xWOBA under a 332 actual, so he's dramatically overperformed the quality. At some point, that all crashes and burns, but he's going to come out looking like an okay season. Tim Tawa, Ildemaro Vargas, and James McCann, all mix and match type guys down toward the bottom of the lineup. Sox bats, where are they ranked? The D-back, they're right next to each other. That's interesting. That really flies in the face of that Vegas total. You can see it right there. The game sims, the ceiling chase, kind of like that Diamondbacks lineup, and that was, again, without Marte. So if you get Marte added in, provides even more of a little bit of a spike there. They've been interesting through these two categories the last, since I put this new part of the board together, actually. They've been showing some upside, and we've gotten there. They had, a 10-run day the other day. So let's go with that. We'll go D-backs over the Red Sox, just slightly. Both teams very much in play offensively. Don't really want any of the pitching setup here, but I would say Brian Bayo on DraftKings in bulk relief. Not relevant on FanDuel at all. You don't want the opener, and I probably don't need Mitch Bratt at 6,700 on DK, and certainly not at 73 on FanDuel. Oh, thank you, Morgan. Arenado also banged up, underwent an MRI today, so you might not get a Nolan Arenado. That's, look, it's a playable piece taken out of that lineup, but that would be the lowest priority out of most of the upside guys, right? Much more tragic if we lose Gabby Moreno from that lineup, even a Lars Nootbaar. So just still not a big believer in any kind of consistency out of Arenado, or that any of that is particularly real. 5-run total for the Braves. I think that's pretty real, going up against Bailey Ober, who's worked to a 4.64 ERA, 4.88 xFIP on the season, striking out just 16%. The walk rate's adequate at 6%. That's okay. But it's led to just a 10.1 strikeout minus walk rate. He's also allowed a 4+% home run on a 22-degree average launch that completely eradicates any of the good that he's doing with that 34% hard hit rate, 35%, 88.5 miles an hour of exit velo. He doesn't allow you to hit the ball crazy hard against, but when he does, it's on a regular enough fly ball trajectory that it leads to a ton of home run downside. He's not finding strikeout this year. He's allowing way too much contact to allow that kind of launch angle to continue. So plenty of opportunity for the Braves to exploit that. 4 guys atop the lineup above the magic number for home run upside. One of them is the home run pick of the day. That guy is not Matt Olson. Matt Olson was the pick from the Braves, pulling in a monster total. He's hit 36 on the year. He's carrying a 378 weighted on base against a 364 xWOBA, monster premium contact. Just one of the very best ways to fill first base on any given slate, particularly this one, 15.11 in the home run model. He's bookended by Michael Harris and Ronald Acuna Jr. Acuna, just one of the best players in baseball, full stop. Michael Harris has been diminished a little bit through the second half here. 20 home runs on the season, 288, 316, 482. For my money, he can be in my lineup any day. 10.9% barrel, 49% hard hit, matching 344 weighted on base, xWOBA 116 WRC plus. Let the tailspin happen. He has come down significantly in price on DK, and 29 on FanDuel is exceptionally cheap for what the talent is. I would have played Michael Harris, last year's version of Michael Harris, in that spot in this lineup for that price. So that's an asset. Mauricio Dubon, mix and match utility type guy, very playable on any given slate. Love the positional flex on FanDuel. Less appealing on DK because it's shortstop. Outfield, I'd rather have him at third or second, as you guys know, but plug him into the outfield here and there on DraftKings. He's perfectly fine. Ozzie Albies interesting at second base. He's also hit 20 home runs on the season. Little bit of overperformance going on from Ozzie, but this is how he always gets to his numbers. So when he does get there, so it's not particularly surprising overperformance or surprising that he's been able to sustain it. Mike Yastrzemski, an underperformance this year, 9 home runs in 312 chances, doesn't exactly match a 43.8% hard hit rate, but the barrels are down somewhat for Yaz year over year the last 2 seasons. xWOBA, weighted on base, have both come down, just a 94 WRC plus. Low end limited option, but a lefty that you could throw at a weak righty from bottom of the lineup. Austin Riley's the most interesting hitter down there. He's been stuck at the bottom of the lineup lately. Still looks ugly at 224, 297, 373 overall, and 85 WRC plus overall. But over the last month, he's had a solid OPS. He's been driving the ball very effectively. He's pushed barrels all the way up to 12.7%. That was at 8.5 a few weeks ago. So Riley's quietly making a lot of noise down lineup. He's still not consistent. There's still a bunch of zeros coming from him, but he's a lot more playable and a lot more alive than he was earlier in the year. And then Jimmy Jarvis doesn't give you very much as a shortstop, 223, 273, 320, and a 63 WRC plus over 114, and doesn't make particularly good contact. On the Twins side, against Martin Perez, who's walking 10% against an 18.6% walk rate, 2.96 ERA that's completely betrayed by that 4.22 xFIP, 4.61 Sierra. He is nowhere near as good as he's been pitching in terms of those runs allowed. Doesn't really come with any strikeout. A lot of downside, very apparent going up against these Twins. I think they're super playable. I don't love the idea of getting to Perez. I think he's a lot more necessary on DraftKings at 73 than he is on FanDuel at 78, where you really don't need to go there outside of a full 150 lineups. Do you roll the dice a few times just because you want to cover a lot of bases on a thin slate? Sure, he's cheap enough, but very limited probability. Keishel from the leadoff spot for the Twins, solid righty, 266, 362, 372. If nothing else, an interesting table setter with the ability to add a little bit of point scoring probability from the stolen base upside. Nice correlated score into Byron Buxton, who has all the power in the world, 13.67 in the home run model. He's hit 25 in only 376 plate appearances. Lost a little bit of time this year. Still a fairly full Byron Buxton season, but lacking overall by about 150 plate appearances from a complete season of plate appearances. Tremendous whenever he's available, 17.1% barrel rate. He is as big a star as anybody at the plate. Ryan Jeffers, solid catcher at 47 on DK, less relevant at 33 on FanDuel. Having a good year at 284, 394, 93, a 150 WRC plus leads this team over 249 plate appearances, making good contact too. Barrels are nicely up by a few percentage points year over year. I just don't need him as much where I don't need catchers, but he is a quality bat if you're going to this team. You mix your way around him. Back and forth conversation with him and Josh Bell through that catcher first base and util positioning. Bell, nice and cheap at 2,900, is having a good year. He's driven in 72 runs. He's also scored 61 times. A lot of that is opportunistic because of the huge on base percentages that appear in front of him in the lineup a lot of the time. Right now, Byron Buxton down at a 316, but when Buxton's going right, he's a lot better at getting on base. And then you get tremendous on base percentages out of these two and several other guys rotating through that spot. So Bell's just cashing that ticket in again and again and again. Overall, 9.9% barrels okay, 42% hard hits is okay, slash line's okay, 105 WRC plus. But counting stats wise, a little bit of power in the 16 home runs, low strikeout, a lot of balls in play, and just a lot of chances to drive runs in. So he does score fantasy points. He is playable when you're going to this team. And considering the price offset between him and Jeffers on FanDuel, I'm probably more interested in Bell. On DraftKings, different positions, obviously, but there is, if you're going 3-man and it's either or positionally, nice price offset on Bell. Solid $1,100 cheaper. Royce Lewis, incredibly playable. Cody Clemens doesn't do great against lefties and has been diminished over the last month or so, but there's a lot of premium contact, a lot of high quality bat on ball out of Cody Clemens when he's going right. If this team chases Martin Perez, then all bets are off for who he gets an opportunity against. And earlier in the year, he was finding a little bit more success against lefties, and this is a low end heavy contact lefty. So I don't hate the chances for Clemens to succeed today, and probably goes a little under-owned across multiple positions. Brooks Lee finding ongoing success for power output, 18 home runs that defy completely his premium contact numbers. Hit a big grand slam yesterday. And then their hotshot rookie, Kalen Culpepper, nice and cheap at short, 27.25. Solid 29 plate appearances so far, 345 on base, a 114 WRC plus, home run on the board. Alan Roden is a hit tool focused outfielder, mix and match piece at the end, but not completely dead at 2,500. Even lefty, you're just looking at hit tool. In a big way, Braves bats, Twins bats. Perez on DraftKings, not particularly interesting on FanDuel. Ober, not particularly interesting on either site, more of a target. Don't really like pitching on either side of this one, but would go Perez over Ober every time. Nope, can't skip the A's game. 5-2-2 juicy total for the Royals stands out in this one. They were one of the top-ranked teams on the old stacks board here. Third on FanDuel, third on DraftKings, second by DK value, fourth by home run, second highest Vegas total, second by probability of going over 8 runs at 25%, second by probability at 12.23 of going over 10 runs. They're facing Mason Barnett, who is very likely to give you just a couple innings here and then be out of our hair. And then we get into what is a gettable bullpen. If this would scroll down faster. Come on. There we go. Barnett, last time out, 4 innings, 4 1/3 the start before that, exactly 5 earned runs in each of those two. Struck out nobody against the Rays, but struck out 7 against the Reds in the outing before that, 6 against the Red Sox in an okay start, 3 earned runs, 4 hits in 5 innings on July 30th. Faced the Twins on the 25th, 2 earned runs over just 3 1/3, and then a lot of just onesie-twosie type innings prior to that. Overall, it amounts to a 6.16 ERA, a 5.0 xFIP, limited as far as strikeouts go, 21.6% against the 12% walk rate, just 8.8% swinging strikes, allowing a massive home run rate so far that comes on a significant fly ball trajectory. Some of that's going to wind up being happenstance. You're not going to be a major league pitcher if you're allowing nearly 7% home runs. But there are a lot of fly balls, a lot of balls in the air here. And these Royals, several of these guys know how to hit home runs, as we talked about earlier in the show. Two key bats coming back to the heart of this Royals lineup that my hope would be they go a little bit underappreciated. They're both underpriced for their quality. Both guys scuffled their way through limited samples earlier in the year. Neither guy found anywhere near the quality that they had just last season. So those are two tremendous pieces to get back in a critical lineup as far as stacking this team. And it just lengthens them, makes them a lot more interesting because you get Sal hitting 6. You get an interesting bat like Michael Massey for cheap at second base, hitting 7 here. Excellent outfield eligibility on FanDuel as well. Massey's hit 11 home runs in 344 chances this year. 40% hard hits, 6.4% barrels. Both those numbers up significantly year over year over year. Strikeouts are around where they've been the last couple of years. If I'm trading 2 points a strikeout, still being only at 17.7% for a little bit of an uptick in premium contact and power, absolutely going to take it. That's an interesting bat that's going to be in no way popular in a popular stack. Isaac Collins, Kyle Isbell, more just mixers at the bottom of the lineup. Neither of those guys is particularly interesting. You certainly don't want both. Ultimately, you don't want either one, but if you land with one of them for cheap in any given stack of Royals, it's okay. But just don't go out of your way to get them, and certainly don't get them both. Sal has first base eligibility on DraftKings. Not that they don't already have 2 other first basemen and 1 other catcher. Just problematic as far as stacking goes with this squad, but that makes them a little bit more difficult to reach, which makes them a little bit more worthwhile because those that go through the challenge of how do I put this team together can get rewarded by people giving up on that idea. Obviously, we've got optimizers to handle that, but just speaks to the point that there are a lot of underappreciated combinations of this team. People will use more Jack Caglianone at first base. They'll maybe use more Vinny at first base than they do Sal Perez. They'll probably use more Carter Jensen from the leadoff spot at catcher than they use Sal Perez. Sal's been mostly dead overall. 214, 260 is ugly, 366, a 300 xWOB under a 272 actual, but 16 home runs, still carrying a 9.6% barrel, still knows how to put bat on ball. He's also dealing with an elbow issue, so I'm happy to see him in the lineup at all. But Sal from the 6 spot probably goes under-owned. Jensen up at the top, knows how to hit the ball very hard, going up against a righty who's allowed nothing but fly balls, some home runs. I love the upside there. 16 long balls on the season. Otherwise, 219, 298, 401. Pretty poor slash line. Not a guy you want leading off necessarily, but premium power upside. Bobby Witt's a superstar at any price. Those are reasonable options, reasonable prices to find them. The FanDuel price, arguably at least 200 cheap. Jack Caglianone, monster power. 22 home runs and 450 chances, just getting started as far as being a power hitter. 14.7% barrel, 55.3% hard hit. Those are elite numbers, guys. 219 ISO, 361 xWOB under his 350 actual, shows the room to grow. 123 WRC plus. And then, again, Garcia and Vinny, 2 of our favorite bats from this team last year. Last season, Garcia, 286, 351, 449, 16 homers, 23 steals, a 121 WRC plus. Vinny hit 32 long balls. Went down a little bit as far as the average on base goes, 264, 323, but more than made it up with the power uptick, 116 WRC plus. Extreme low strikeout, high walk rate. Those are 2 excellent options from this lineup. If you're on the A side, I've already referred to Waka a few times. He's pitched to a 3.46 ERA. He does have that 4.35 xFIP, 4.38 CRA. He's around a 4-run pitcher if we're being honest about things. But as mentioned, works deep into games. Even if he's given up 4 runs, we're very likely to see him in the 6th inning and potentially even the 7th. He's excellent at providing depth, clawing back some points DFS-wise. He's just a 19% strikeout guy. He's projected under 30 FanDuel points, under 15 DraftKings points. Nobody's trying to sell you any snake oil here. There's no illusions about who Michael Wacha is. But against the lower-end A's team that comes in at below a 4-run total, he's absolutely a big part of the pitching conversation, and he gives at least pause to any considerations of going to the A's for value or for contrarian reasons. If you're going in that direction, priority bats around, they don't even have Soderstrom in the lineup today. So Zach Geloff is your probably highest priority, is your highest projected starter. 5.65 in the home run model. It's a former 2020 guy. He's got 14 and 8 so far this season and only 273 chances, really reclaiming a lot of his talent. But it's also come on some happenstance, some good fortune. 360 weighted on base against a 308 xWOB. We'll explain that away. Lawrence Butler, greatly diminished talent overall, another former 2020 guy, but 208, 299, 353, and 82 WRC plus. He's a lefty, sure. That could be problematic. Carlos Cortez made interesting contact early in the season, but greatly diminished over time. He is getting on base at a 337 clip, but not really doing all that much with it. The 110 WRC plus is nice, and it's 10 points above average. He's low strikeout, medium walk rate, but I'd like to see him swipe a few more bags. I'd like to see him get involved a little bit more with power output. Henry Bolte's already stolen 14 bases while getting on at a 339 clip over 300 plate appearances. That was 300 in a hurry. Wow. 101 WRC plus, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed there. That's an interesting player. If you're already going to this team, 34-27, he's affordable in your outfield. Just not a real high priority guy to go to or to draw you to the A's on a limited day for quality for them. Donovan Walton, Tommy White, Brian Servant, just mixers down toward the bottom of the A's lineup. Cheap, but no real draw there. 125 WRC plus, over 154 on Donovan Walton's probably your best option, 362 on base. But as you set in the table for, you got to get through two pretty bad players before you get back to the top of a pretty limited lineup with slap hitters like Jeff McNeil and Jacob Wilson going 1-2. Either one of those guys could fill out a role in any given lineup, but neither one of those guys is likely to give you a monster DFS day. And now when you're talking about 4 times through the lineup, 3 times through the lineup, we're getting these 3 guys leading into those 2 guys for a big chunk of A's stretch of A's lineup. It just doesn't play to a lot of DFS upside. Royals bats, Michael Wacha. A's bats, I guess, but don't really want him. Mason Barnett, don't really want him at all. White Sox and the Cubbies. White Sox coming in at that low 3.58 implied total. Had an interesting weekend against the Tigers. Interesting squad up and down. I like this lineup. They're filled with quality DFS players who some guys absolutely mash. Some guys hit a fair number of home runs. Everybody steals some bases. On base comes and goes. General quality overall and consistency needs some work. It's a young developing team, but they're really interesting for what we're looking for. They're facing Shota Imanaga, who, as mentioned earlier in the show, a good pitcher working to a 3.74 ERA, 3.88 xFIP, 3.74 SIERA, striking out 23.5% against just 5.2% walk. He doesn't give any opportunities away, but he does give up the incidental home runs, quite a few of them. It's an extreme fly ball trajectory, 18.3 degree average launch, 9.7% barrel. It's led to a 5% home run rate this year. What it probably means is we're just picking off a home run guy in one limited long ball. Maybe it bends it to a 3-run type day. You can see, though, that Murakami's pulling off of that, doubling the magic number at 20.86. He's only hit 28 home runs in 383 chances, 368 on base. Dude just is Kyle Schwarber. Ridiculously talented. Even lefty here. I'm not worried about it if I'm just home run hunting. He's inconsistent overall as far as the average goes. He's not, going to go out there and hit a ton of singles, but he just murders baseballs when he makes contact. That plays up nicely against those incidental fly balls. And if you're talking about home run to fly ball rate, then Murakami's your man. You get good quality righties on Miguel Vargas and Randall Grichuk. Both of those guys very, very capable of delivering the long ball against a lefty. Grichuk's made a career out of it. He's hit 9 on the season in only 194 plate appearances while making very good contact and remaining extremely cheap in the heart of this lineup in the outfield. Randall Grichuk, if you're considering the White Sox at all, is an ultra high priority bat today and would probably be a part of paying off the power downside against Imanaga if they have the multi-home run day and they really actually go off against him. Again, through our probability marks, they are lower ranked than a lot of the surrounding teams, but not off the board. And you're talking about a separation of 3.5 to 4 percentage points from the teams that are near the top of the board in terms of scoring 8 or more runs. So they're in the mix. They could pay off around that big home run ball, but they need to get extra guys on base. That's where a guy like Chase Meidroth comes in, 3,900, 3,000. He's hit for a little bit more power this year. He's up to 12 home runs, driving the ball a little bit more effectively. It only amounts to a 4.5% barrel, but that's nearly tripled where he was last year. Also getting on at a 354 clip. Not stealing bases this year, but creates plenty of havoc out there. 119 WRC plus, probably a guy who continues to defy xWOBA through placement, a little bit of speed. Braden Montgomery, switch hitter with a little bit of pop in the bat that hasn't been delivered consistently, but that is a good player in the heart of the lineup for a cheap price in the outfield. Sammy Antonacci is the guy I was looking for. Slides down the lineup when there's a lefty on the bump, but still provides a lot of quality down here. Has second base eligibility on DK, which I think is key for playing him. Outfielder only on FanDuel dings him a little bit as far as quality. Sammy's stolen 15 bags, getting on at a 365 clip. That's an interesting low strikeout, put the ball in play, succeed as correlated scoring from down here. If you're not going Meidroth at second base, you can consider bringing Sammy along for the ride at 4,000. In between those guys, I was ranting and raving about this the other day because Brenton Doyle should still be on the Colorado Rockies. Absolute mistake by that organization giving this player up. 3,300, 2,500. He's having a low-end overall season. Former 2020 guy with an extreme amount of talent as far as delivering the long ball, hitting the ball for power, 10.8% barrel, 44.6% hard hit last year, 10.5% barrel the year before. Plenty of output for power and stolen base in his skill set. It's just whether or not he actually finds it. In the meantime, just utterly elite center field defense, which really works well at Coors Field. Great pickup by the White Sox. I expect success out of Brenton Doyle in the long term in Chicago. And given his power, given his cheap price, given the fact that people think he's bad and will not use him, he's interesting in the heart of this lineup if you're going to the White Sox when we're talking about just home run hunting against Imanaga anyway. That's an interesting enough one-off outfielder, if you're being completely honest. Luis Angel and Jake Rogers down toward the bottom. Maybe you pick off one good piece of contact with Rogers, but he's been wildly inconsistent for it this year. 8% barrels down from 9.2 last year, 9.9 the year before, and 12% when he was actually good at finding the barrel. Luis Angel is just a slap hitter who's doing really nothing at the plate. On the Cubbies side, they're going up against Luis Castillo. Castillo had a nice game last time out that I mentioned way back at the beginning of the show. 10 strikeout day over 7 innings against the Reds. 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks. Fantastic day. His best start of the year. He has gone 7 in 2 of his last 4 outings, both against the Reds. Only struck out 3, gave up 2 home runs, 3 earned runs on 4 hits in that first one. In between a 5-inning day of 5-run ball against the Dodgers, it was pretty low end, and a 4-inning day against a 5-run ball against the Red Sox that was also pretty bad. He's had a wildly inconsistent season. Major up and down, striking out 20% against 7.2% walk. Okay, from time to time you can get away with it. 4.27 xFIP, 4.18 Sierra are probably the truth of the matter against that near 5 ERA. So probably not as bad as he's been, but certainly not as good as he once was. You're throwing him into a Cubs team that's pretty good, has power, gets on base, has speed, scores runs, etc., etc. Doesn't look like a great spot. 79, he would be the bottom border of playability, I think, on either site. 78 on DraftKings. Much more relevant to your DraftKings slate where we're drawing 2, obviously. Cubbies bats against from that 4.50 implied total. You get PCA in the leadoff role, 65.42, full price superstar, 28 home runs, 30 steals, paying it off, 148 WRC plus. Been absolutely tremendous this season. Speaking of elite center field defense, what a matchup of center field defenders in this game. Suzuki, 55-36, 21 home runs, monster ability to drive the baseball. That said, diminished somewhat in consistency. 48.7% hard hit last year, 48.9 the year before, 48 the year before that, all the way down to 39% this year. That's a big, big dip. 273, 362, 46 hasn't really damaged the output, but a 337 xWOBA under that 367 actual. So he's been overperforming and kind of masking a dip in contact, a dip in barrel, 16.6 down to 10.6 this year. Still very good, but maybe an overprice given some of that. But he's been able to make it work and completely paying off those prices. So a little back and forth in the Suzuki conversation. Bush has lost a lot of his power output, only 15 long balls on the season and 552 chances, explained away by the halving of his barrel rate year over year and his hard hit rate coming way down. Alex Bregman has lost his power output. He's hit 16 on the season. That's okay. Solid season overall, 251, 343, 402, a 109 WRC plus. You strip the name off, that is a perfectly fine season of output at third base for those prices DFS wise. In Happ at 43-32, cheap for a guy with 20 home runs. The on base has come down. The walks are still there. They've come down slightly, but they're still present. But he's pushed strikeout way up this year. That's where some of the on base quality is just kind of evaporated to in an otherwise still mostly competent season for Ian Happ. Nico Horner's been greatly diminished this year overall, but still good. 320 on base is just okay. 260 average, just okay. But 20 steals, handful of runs and ribbies. 325 xWOBA speaks to the underlying quality. Very affordable at those prices at second base. Pedro Ramirez, Michael Conforto, Miguel Amaya down toward the bottom of the lineup. Conforto remains a Interesting, puzzling kind of a lefty. He's hit 10 home runs, just 229, 321, 452, just a 317 xWOBA under that 332 actual, but has delivered a 111 WRC plus. And the xWOBA comes against a 11.9% barrel, a 43.7% hard hit. So there is premium contact available there. There are walks available there. It's kind of a weirdly inexplicable xWOBA as I'm trying to figure out where it comes from. But he's all over the place this year. That makes him playable for DFS at 32, at 25 in the outfield. And that's a guy we've seen succeed at much higher levels over the years. And Amaya is just a mixer at catcher. Cubbies bats. Imanaga. White Sox bats. Louis Castillo. All four things are playable in this game. I'm interested in those White Sox creeping through the board. I don't want to oversell it, right? Because look where they are probability-wise. They are significantly offset from even those 16s when we're talking about that 12% probability of going 8 or more, 4% probability of going 10 or more. But just that home run upside. And you find that day where a couple guys are on base. There's not a lot of probability through that. There is possibility that might get underappreciated on this one. If I'm building like 5 lineups, I've probably got a White Sox stack. If I'm building like 2 lineups, I don't know that I do. Last one up, saving the best for last. Nearly a 7-run total for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And if you've been paying attention, they're pulling a 47% probability. So when I'm talking about 16% and 12% and so on and so forth, all the way up to 25% probable for everybody else as far as going over 8 runs in FanGraphs game sims. Again, the baseball of it. It's a completely different animal. They're nearly 30% probable in game sims to go over 10 runs. The next highest is 12.23 for Kansas City. They're essentially tripling everybody else's probability or more on this board. You're going 6 times more likely than some of these teams to go to 10 runs or higher. It's Coors Field. They're very expensive, although on FanDuel they're affordable through there. They're going to be incredibly popular, justifiably incredibly popular. 5 guys above the magic number in the home run model with 2 other guys chasing it. Ridiculous amounts of run scoring ability, gobs of talent. You can't oversell this spot. There's good chalk. There's good chalk, and then there's this. Insane opportunity to get them. Good luck. Nobody you take out of this lineup, with maybe the exception of Hunter Fiducia, and probably not even on DK. Nobody's going to be low owned. Some guys might not be owned necessarily immediately in line with their talent, Kyle Tucker. Some guys maybe with their ceiling, Teoscar Hernandez, might be a little under-owned. Bad spot in the lineup for Teoscar, but monster power upside. 46 on DK probably renders him a little bit lower owned, but the 51 for a struggling Kyle Tucker, I bet you knocks his popularity down some. But it's going to be much, much more about what are you putting with the Dodgers today, as far as how do you get different, where do you find your lanes to success. Getting around them, as I talked about, you don't want the full fade, but if you're building 150 or even if you're building like 20 today, I do think it pays to have some runs of your lineup building process where let me just take the Dodgers side of Coors out of the mix so that I know I'm getting a good population of lineups that are built on these teams, right? With those foundations. Twins can mix into that group. D-backs can mix into that group considering the ceiling probability that we're seeing. Cubbies could definitely mix into that group. In fact, they probably should. Right, so just want to make sure instead of getting so many lineups, thousands of lineups through normal process where it's each one of these teams in combination with the Dodgers dominating any process, any sim, anything that I do. Let me do a couple runs where I'm letting those teams build together with one another more so that I can gain angle against the field. And then even with that, still get super chalky along with the field with the Dodgers because of that extreme probability. Odds are you want this. combined with one of those that was just highlighted, but there are plenty of paths, and their overall combined probability probably adds up to about even. In no way do we want Tomo Sugano on the mound. Dodgers bats, absolutely. Blake Snell, 9,200. Again, went 6 innings in that return to action. Struck out 10 in what was a dominant start. And that was against the Royals, a much better lineup than these Colorado Rockies bring to bear. Tons of strikeout in this Rockies lineup, 24% across the confirmed version of the Rocks. They're pulling a 4.25 implied total, but even if you get short outing from Snell, even if he happens to lose a couple of these guys to walk, that's an artificial 13% walk rate, by the way. This team doesn't draw a ton of walk. That's 8.3% for the 8 guys in this lineup who have more than 4 plate appearances. So we're not counting that 50%. Low-end walk team. So not primed to exploit the one thing that every now and again gets away from Blake Snell. So monster spot for him, 16.8% swinging strike rate in his 9 innings this year. That is pretty realistic. Could rack up a big strikeout total and a monster fantasy score, even in limited action today. And then once we get to the bullpen, that doesn't really benefit the Rockies. Even with some recent bad performances out of that pen, it's still a bullpen filled with elite arms. So low end spot for the Rocks. That said, they are at Coors Field. You do have some interesting bats like Hunter Goodman, Cole Carrig to a degree, maybe Jordan Beck from late lineup, Connor Norby pick off some right-handed upside. But overall, pretty low-end squad against an ace-caliber pitcher. For looking Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani speaks for himself. He's playing at Coors Field today. 19.52 in my home run model. He was over 10% probable to hit a home run in FanGraphs game sims today. Just looks completely tremendous. Max Muncy at 57, at 37, 14.95. Your next man up in the home run model. 24 on the season to sit second on this team. Just a little bit ahead of Andy Pajes, who slipped down to the 3 spot in this lineup. I think that's the right way to build. Freddie Freeman sliding into the 2 spot at 373 on base, 15 home runs on the season, a 372 xWOB under his 364 actual. Absolutely fantastic Hall of Fame type player. 3,800 is a little bit cheap for Freddie at Coors Field on FanDuel. 62, not incorrect on DK. 39, 37, arguably cheap on Pajes and Muncy as well. 56, 57, same thing. And then Mookie, downright cheap at 4,900 on DraftKings. They kind of forgot to increase Mookie Betts' price. 36 on FanDuel, they didn't really forget. That's up a couple $100 over where they've had him recently. Mookie's still only a 12% strikeout, 7.1% walk. You get a ton of balls in play out of Mookie Betts. And he's driven the ball a little bit more this year, 5.5% barrel last year, 6% the year before, up to 7.8 in his limited season this season. He's hit 15 home runs for it. Low end slash line, I get why he's not necessarily as expensive as his peers. He's not the Mookie Betts of old right now, but he has a 330 xWOBA under that 304 that it says he's going to get at least back toward that guy. And he's hit the ball hard, and he's found some home run upside, and he's playing in Coors Field against Tomo Sugano today. I think Mookie gets very, very popular at those prices, but incredibly usable. Kyle Tucker, again, that's the guy I'm interested in. 3,300, 8.02, diminished in the home run model. Terrible season for $500 million, but what are you going to do? That's in the past. It's all bright upside from here for Kyle Tucker. He's got a 331 xWOB under his 313 actual. He's got a 330 on base. He is at least out there getting on base, hopefully setting the table for guys that follow, like Edman, like Teoscar Hernandez. If I can get a Tucker and Hernandez combo as 2 of my 4 guys on FanDuel, I'm very happy about that. And then I'll play it cheap and go through Mookie and Max for the direct correlation there. And it's not going to be low owned. It's not cheap. It's $3,500 a man. It's going to be popular, but it's cheaper and it's less popular than anything that includes these 3 guys at the top. And there's just as much shared upside or good enough for government work. Edman, solid mixer, but considering the price differential and considering the positional flex, probably gets very, very popular for his actual talent, but a guy who can definitely benefit from just putting the ball in play at Coors Field. That is what this ballpark does for people. In addition to the thin air and so on and so forth, it's just a gigantic ballpark. So the ball hits the ground in the outfield and can roll forever. You could drive the ball into the gap, and a lazy fly ball can become a double, a triple. A guy like Tommy Edman finds a lot of success there. Hunter Fiducia, not much of a bat, but 3 home runs and 183 plate appearances. Mix and match piece for very cheap for a guy, again, playing at Coors Field. And then closing it out, again, the priorities on the Rocks. The priority is Hunter Goodman. 34 home runs in 460 plate appearances, one of the best catchers in baseball this year. 59 4,000 though, very expensive for a guy against one of the better arms in baseball without a lot of help around him in this lineup. Cole Carrick has been good at getting on base, 378 on base, swiped 7 bases, hit 5 home runs. It's a reasonably good hit tool, reasonably good bat. We'll see where the power goes, but the speed is very real for Carrick. Drawing a nice walk rate, he's your second highest priority player in this lineup right now. Jake McCarthy had a good year so far, 296, 335, 495. Certainly playable from the leadoff spot. The lefty, not going to do him any favors here against Blake Snell. 356 weighted on base, dramatically overperforming that 318. Exwo in the best season we've ever seen from him. Willie Castro, mix and match utility player type. TJ Rumfield having a nice year, 291, 371, 448. Among the rookie leaders for base hits, but not doing anything exceptional as far as DFS. Those 13 home runs came in one big bunch, and then it's been pretty limited as far as the output. 4.5% barrel, 27.1% hard hits. And then down further in the lineup, you do get a little bit of once upon a time right-handed prospect pedigree out of Jordan Beck. A little bit of home run upside, a little bit of stolen base upside, 112 terrible plate appearances in the show this year. Connor Norby, kind of the same thing, 249 really bad plate appearances, but rumors of ability to put bat on ball from the right side. Ezequiel Tovar, dead in the water at 31-29. I would rather have Ariel Amador at second base for 27 and shortstop or second base for only 21 on FanDuel. He actually is in my placeholder, even though I didn't use the Rockies. I just needed somebody at 2,100. He fit the bill. Monster game yesterday, I want to say, or just the other day. He's had 4 plate appearances in the show this year. And obviously you can see that was all in one big game. Last year, 128 terrible plate appearances. The year before that, 36 terrible plate appearances. Not much of a player, not much of a bat, but he's super cheap. Playing his game in Coors Field today. Switch hitter, just a spot filler, really, if you need something like that. That's how we're going to end the show with Ariel Amador. I do need to punch out in a hurry here. I got to get the site updated. Arch Stanton. Goodman scratched. Yikes. Carson Kelly in a catcher. Okay. So that's problematic for any kind of upside for the Rocks there. Glad you guys called that out. Carson Kelly is a good catcher option for whatever he costs if you're throwing it in. But Arch Stanton has a much more important question on the board that we'll answer before we leave. Arch says, if he's still out there, need a high-end, low-end home run today. My marriage depends on it. Well, the home run pick of the day that I think I skipped over as I was talking about it, I said everybody who it wasn't in that Braves lineup, but the home run pick of the day was Drake Baldwin. That's a high-end pick. I think that speaks for itself, but a little higher end, and honestly, the one I wanted to make but didn't because I've used him so many times, is Matty Olson. Your league leader in home runs, just an absolute beast, or second in the league in home runs. Absolute beast at the plate. So I love Matty Olson there for your high quality pick if you're still out there. And then let me make a lower end. Oh, Murakami's also a pretty good bet, doubling the magic number. Ohtani was another good answer at Coors Field. I don't tend to think about Coors Field when we're picking home runs, but he was 10% probable to go in the FanGraphs game sims. But looking down your board here, there you go. I'll give you Randall Grichuk. I don't know where he is on the board. I haven't spotted him yet. There you go. 9.10. Just the collision of Randall Grichuk's right-handed quality, and we're talking again low-end type option, right? Cheap type option. Randall Grichuk's quality colliding with Imanaga's home run problem maybe delivers you that cheap home run. So if I'm just thinking through cheapo, lower end player, that's the name that fits that bill out of everybody up there. I was originally going to say Miguel Vargas, but he's exceeded that quality level so far this year. So Grichuk kind of stands out for that. That'll be how we wrap things up here. Let me punch out so I can get the site updated in these last 20 minutes before FanDuel locks. Good luck out there tonight, gang. Somebody go win something. One last look at your stacks board. One last look at the rules for the home run picks, the pitching picks contest. You need a quality start, 6 innings of 3 earned runs or fewer, plus 8 or more strikeouts. I didn't take anybody off the board. Got to be somebody from this slate. There's your stacks board. It's really interesting. And one last look at your pitching board because it is messy today. Nice tier up there. Another little set apart tier, I think, with those 3 guys. And then like your usable cheapo guys. And then like your usable bargain bin guy. And then everything else is just garbage or you're really taking chances. Good luck out there tonight. Nobody off the board, Meech. Everybody's on the board. I left them alone today. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share the results when you do at rotoscouts on Twitter, in the premium Discord, linked in the description below. Jump on in there and join the community. Promo code try me, all one word, capital T, capital M. Still gets your free first week on a weekly to jump behind the paywall at Rotoscouts. Use these projections tonight. We'll be back for more tomorrow, gang. See ya.